There.
I gotta find that guy's channel.
You're live.
Hello, everyone. I'm looking for an article, or a video that we're going to look at. And I had it pulled up, and now I don't have it anymore.
Like...
So, hang on.
No, I forgot something.
I'm going to have to type it in.
Type what in?
How to find this thing I have pulled up.
You're too big to be doing dumb shit like this. Okay.
Okay. It should come up with this if I put this in, because surely there's not a bunch of videos titled this.
You weigh the same as a small boulder. You can't be doing this shit.
Okay, yeah, here it is.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, I don't know why.
Next president of the United States.
It's giving me problems about my settings, but it's just gonna have to move on. Okay, I've got it ready. I don't know if Dave's gonna come on or what's. Oh yeah, he's ready. He's beyond ready. I'm gonna go back and read these comments. I'm gonna probably laugh or get screamy at you. Let's see. What'd you put? Motherfucking like bitches.
What's up?
Hey, what'd you say? Second try.
Oh, I fucked up, and I was like, when I hit that, I had like an S on there. Shat. It looks like shat. Hit shat, motherfucker.
I love that. Okay, yeah, you were getting impatient, and I was like, damn it, I knew it. No,
you actually had a great, instead of like doing 30 minutes, you gave me, perfect window. I wanted to comment on, we were talking with Team Rose about the numbers like shifting, like all of a sudden, like you like be looking at it and then like refresh the page and all of a sudden it changes and you're like, what the hell just happened, right?
Yeah.
I was paying attention to your to the Team Rose live we did, and I was like, man, this is gonna be her first 200 viewed video, so I was paying attention. I was like,
it was at 160 something when I looked, 168 when I looked.
It was at like 174, and I was like, oh well, this is definitely going to go to 200, so we're going to have that 200 viewed celebration. And then it dropped 30. It went down to like in the 50s and shit, or something like. It dropped like 30. Like that, like a snap of a finger, and I was like, "Wow, dude, that's fucked up." Why would you why even screw around? Even like if someone was like sitting there going, I don't know, man. I don't know. It just
me and you had one that had 140 something before the Rose one. It was the maybe the grunge part 1 or something.
Yeah,
ours had 140 something,
and now it's down to like 120.
Yeah. Now,
why? I mean, dude, especially when we're like so chump change.
Exactly.
It's not like we're calling China and asking them to like, hit the like, or you do the views. You know what I'm saying? It's like it seems so weak.
To me, if they want to fuck with Rose, okay, well then they saw her over here, whatever. They fuck with numbers. They're doing it to her, whatever. But like me and you on that video, why go back later? Like that's been a while.
Right. That was up for like maybe a day and a half, maybe almost 2, when I saw this shift where it was like, wow, we lost 30. That's hard to climb because people are coming here like, through just like it's not like we're like sending it out to the universe and they're like the universe is actually like grabbing onto it. It's really kind of our crew that are watching it. So like as soon as they pulled it back 30 videos, it's like, well, that's going to really slow shit down,
Yep, that's it. I agree. Well, I have this ready to go here with this American Spy Fox, the conspiracy with author John Patosh, talking about Courtney Love, the CIA, MKUltra, Cobain, and Tupac. So they're getting all up in a bunch of stuff.
All over the place, yeah. Conspiracy. So yeah, let's go.
Add some stuff to my title, but I was just going with whatever at the moment.
Yeah, I thought the other one was good. When you get your hashtags in there, and then maybe we can pull some kind of the the internet universe come, maybe that some outside people will actually like gravitate to it and maybe listen to it.
Yep.
So yeah.
That sounds good. Okay, well, here we go. We're starting this off here.
I'm the American Spy Fox, and welcome to the channel. Today, we have a special guest, John Potash. Now, you're a number of things, right? I've read a little about you. Activist, writer. I think you wrote a documentary, a couple books out there. Would you like to tell everybody, just in case they're not familiar with you, a little bit about your history?
Sure. Well, I've been working as a psychotherapist for a living, but I've been writing books. I first wrote The FBI War on Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders, which now is titled just The FBI War on Tupac Shakur, as it got republished by a new publishing company just this past year. But that was really like a diversion, a tangent from the original project, which was Drugs as Weapons Against Us, the CIA's murderous targeting of STS, Panthers, Hendrix, Lennon, Cobain, Tupac, and other activists. So that was really the big project I was working on, but I took that tangent. And then I got back to the original work, which I came out with this book in 2015 with Trine Day Publishing, and then I turned it into a movie, a film in 2019. That came out in January 2019, and the FBI War on Tupac book, I made a film, just a really rudimentary film on that. I published that book in 2007 and came out with the documentary in 2009.
Okay, so here's a question that I'm just curious about. I've noticed a lot of documentaries over the last few years seem to be, I think, produced by a company called Gravitas or something like that.
Well, that's my distributor of my first documentary. Drugs as Weapons Against Us, this documentary, and the subtitle is The CIA War on Musicians and Activists. It's Gravitas Ventures. They're a big distributor. They also are a movie studio, but they got both arms. And the movie studio is has been nominated for an Academy Award for documentaries. So they've gotten pretty big. So I'm glad to be distributed by them.
Yeah, I noticed a couple Nick Broomfield documentaries were distributed by Gravitas. I was just curious. I did watch the documentary. I didn't get to read your entire book, but I find it very, very fascinating that you were capable of connecting all these dots, especially going all the way back to the Opium Wars. But it makes sense. Like, you watch it and you're like, okay, because we all know that the rich and the powerful have control, but you don't really know why. You know what I mean? Like, where did their money come from? Where did their control come from? And if you've looked at my channel at all, a lot of it is based around Nirvana and Kurt Cobain. We're just now getting into Hendrix and Tupac was a request. That's what led me to you. Would you care to all talk about your book in relation to these people? Just anything you would like to say?
Yeah, sure. No, I think they're all connected because they all were so, some of the most popular musicians in the world. I mean, arguably, Tupac and Kurt Cobain were the two most popular musicians in the world at the time of their deaths. Cobain was on top of the charts when he died, and then Tupac was on top of the charts when he died. And and of course, you could say the same about John Lennon. He reached the top as the most influential musician at one point. And
it's crazy that people now, some people now compare Cobain to Lennon.
Oh, definitely. They've always
in the 90s.
Yeah, they've always called him the John Lennon of his generation. I mean, that's been cited many times by many different people, but. And I think it's an apt thing to say because they were both very brilliant, and they both were very political. People don't realize that Cobain was political like John Lennon was, but Cobain that didn't come out in as many places. But he was it came out in the biography of Nirvana that came out like a year before Cobain died by Michael Azerrad. By Michael Azerrad, yeah. And one of the interesting things of that is that one of the chapters opens up with big print saying, with a quote from Cobain saying, we first wanted to put all kinds of anarchistic essays about how to build your own bomb and things like that when the cover of Nevermind. But then we thought we better hold off on that. We should wait till we get more popular when people might actually take it seriously. And so that's just a sample of his radical politics. As he was very anti-capitalist and very radical. How serious was he completely? That's debatable, of course. But he always threw out these anti-capitalist kinds of statements. And
I have a comment here. With Kurt, he seems so different than Lane and Chris and Andy when he's so got involved in college and politics and protest and really deep stuff outside of music. You understand what I'm saying?
You're saying Kurt? You're referring to Kurt?
Yeah, almost on a different intellectual level or a different way as far as looking at intellect. He had a lot of interest outside of music, and he was very intelligent and passionate about protest and things that these other guys, they were shooting up and, whatever, outside of music, that was their fun. He's protesting, painting the abortion clinic, you know what I'm saying? This guy's different, and this is a
definitely artistic. I mean, I think that was it's pretty clear.
It's
that he was he was an in-depth thinker.
But I mean, you know what I'm saying? You had protests and shit back in the day, hippie times or whatever.
Right.
But he's carrying it on through, he learned whatever in college that got him, stirred up to the point.
I don't know. I think you might be wrong with college.
No, I want to say he went to college.
I don't think so, because they basically, I feel like they were kind of like a garage band in high school together, him and Chris with a T, the bassist. And I feel like they fell right out of high school and right into just grinding with the music.
I don't know why, but I was thinking when we were talking about that Kristen Pfaff girl that they both had a background, college education in music.
Yeah, I think that you might be just kind of misinterpreting that he was an avid reader.
Okay. I don't know why I was thinking that they had something in common of a higher education or something. I don't know. Anyway,
no, he was definitely into learning music. I mean, he knew music back and like the back of his hand.
Yeah, I just wonder who that girl was that I can't remember whose interview we watched that said she was the one with him when he spray painted the clinic.
Yeah, she's that one band, all girl band.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about now. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I find it weird. He stands out and he has this extra friend. I'm sure Courtney does not like that at all. So I don't know. It's just he has a whole different vibe. She has to have influenced him big time to take his interest away from from what he really wanted to get out as a message.
What do you think of this? Where do you think they're going with what they're talking about here? I mean, they're talking about. I mean, they've already referred to Tupac. They've referred to Kurt. They've referred to
MKUltra.
The Beatles.
My thought process is the whole, you're worth more dead than alive.
You think that's where they're going with this?
Mm-hmm. And they're going to talk about why and who, and I mean that's what I think, because I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I think the MKUltra is referring to government and the Big Brother aspect. Yeah. So maybe he's trying to tie in some kind of that the government somehow is trying to do the narrative, kind of how you would get rid of JFK, Martin Luther King, and change the these figureheads that would influence minds.
Yeah, it's powerful names is what they're talking about, and then they're throwing in CIA, And then I know I asked you this, and I'm not talking about the one on here, but who is MKUltra? I'm sorry, I may be just wrong, but I don't even
You
know.
talking about the person, like the YouTuber?
No. This in
Oh,
the person.
MKUltra. It was a program, I believe, that a lot of people really point to the whole JFK assassination. And there's like stories that it was part of like dosing. You're dosing Americans. Like they're like people get. You know, like when you watch like what was the ghost popular ghost movie?
Casper Ghost? I don't know.
No, like before that, it was Ghostbusters, right? So you had like the big Bateman character, and he was in there, you know, like what I don't know. I just feel like basically they were dosing Americans in like where you would have people coming in and go, "Yay, we'll pay you," you know, like $50 to come in here and be a part of our program, and they were like putting people on acid and seeing if they could somehow like program them. Is it easier to like program them while they're like dosing on acid? So I think that has to do with that the MKUltra is kind of that program, this government program where they were like messing around with
So
psychedelics.
they talk about that same thing with Charles Manson. I've just never heard it called MKUltra. And I keep hearing that, you know, come up, you know, and, you know, like you said, the YouTuber, whatever. I've never even cared. I've always just wondered. I hate to say this. Y'all are going to laugh at me, but I literally thought it was a rapper. And I thought, okay, it's a rapper I've never heard of called MKUltra. Because it sounds like a rapper name, you know? And I literally thought it was like someone, you know, famous that I just have never really listened to or whatever. So that's why I asked. I just was like, I felt really out of the loop. So that makes a huge difference there. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
That's
No, not at all. Actually, you're making me think. You remember what I was saying? Like I had that comment on my video, and it was, what was his name? Now I'm confused because it was
no,
actually,
it's not. It
but
wasn't.
now I'm thinking it's Rapper J. I think that was it. Rapper J that was connected with the MKUltra. He stutters. I don't know. Now I'm thinking like freaking. I might be like wrong.
It wasn't Silent J. It was Rapper J.
Okay. All right. So I got to go delete that comment.
Why? Like you just don't.
Well, now it's like I thought I would confuse the Silent J with Rapper J, and I was like trying to like, you know, dig in and say, you know, what's up with MKUltra? Because I know his channel got taken down.
Yeah, Silent J is the one who said something about the one on Roses about selling your soul.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
right, I got off the tangent. Sorry.
Let's go.
He's a political person. Woo. Okay.
Always talked about, you know, made fun of the fat cats and their big hats with their cigars, and you know was very said, you know, like mainstream media, you know, like what did he say? He had something written on his shirt about corporate media
corporate magazines still suck.
Still suck. Yeah, I mean,
I like that.
The establishment
on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Pause it.
Right, on the cover of Rolling Stone, right. And so that's, you know, and they allowed that.
Okay.
Yeah, so like so Nirvana like blew up, and then Rolling Stones covering them, and Kurt Cobain gets a white T-shirt and like with like a scripto goes on there and it's like corporate magazines still suck, and they still put it on the cover.
Yeah, that
funny.
He had that much power that they weren't going to say no. Change, you know.
Yeah, they're like, okay, well, you know, I thought that they probably thought that was funny as hell.
Yeah, I mean, they probably knew like we're going to get whatever, but it's also attention. You know, people are wanting to do that. People collect them, whatever.
You know, I could totally see. I mean, if they wanted to, they could have totally taken white out and whited it out and like made it however they wanted to, you know, perception wise. So I mean, they were like, you know, they kind of embraced it for sure, or they wouldn't have done it. They would have said, "Oh, fuck you, Nirvana." You know, we're going to put like a Soundgarden on here.
Yeah, like I have a thing with Evan Dando of the Lemonheads and Dave Letterman, and he's like kind of backhanded talking to him about the clothes he's wearing. So I mean, somebody would say something. They're going to let him do whatever. They're just glad he's there. They're happy he came.
Because they were a little bit more marginal of magazines, you know. And so that's just who he was, and so people don't realize that, and that's the way he was. Yeah, it's why it makes sense that he was more the John Lennon of his generation. John Lennon, talked about being a socialist at times. He had the Black Panthers on when he was allowed to host. I think it was the Merv Griffin show for a week. He invited on different Black Panthers to interview, and he invited on some just radical activists that were considered themselves socialist or communist, believe it or not. And so they were all anti-war. The Black Panthers were anti-war, of course. The other anti-war activists he had on there, he talked about ending the war and stuff. And so that's what why they were also a threat to the powers that be. And so
right, that was my next question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and so the powers that be, what the little appreciated aspect of the Vietnam War and wars in general, sadly enough, are they're about resources. And the Vietnam War in particular was about one very profitable resource, which is the poppy fields and the opium, that comes from those poppy fields and the golden triangle for opium of Vietnam. And so in Afghanistan, it's the Golden Crescent for poppy fields. And they're both at two ends of the same mountain range where the best poppy fields in the world, can rise up. Where the most heroin in the world comes from and the most opium, comes from. And so that's an incredibly profitable resource. And the CIA has been trafficking drugs for decades, and the oligarchs have been behind drug trafficking for centuries. And
it's funny when you hear the word oligarch, you immediately think like Russian gangster, Russian.
Yeah.
We have our oligarchs too, right?
Yeah, of course.
Pause it.
I'm gonna spin it.
We just don't use that word.
Yeah, oligarchs in Russia were the families that were connected to the government when it fell apart, right? And they basically all took a share and then became hella rich. So they're in Russia, the oligarchs, that's who they are. They basically took $1 billion each, when they basically like divvied up the all the money that Russia had when they fell apart, right?
Yeah, I mean it's their version of the royals there, I guess.
Right. So they're referring to America's version of oligarchs are, I guess, kind of like when I think about it, it would be like, I don't know, DuPont, or you like freaking like these families that are just like when you, there's another one that popped, J.P. Morgan, or like these kind of
Elon Musk people.
Well, no, this is like you're talking about like maybe in the 60s, like when you think about like big ass names that were out there, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm sure that's where they're going.
That's what comes to mind for me anyway. Today, when I think about money, is Donald Trump, Elon Musk, that kind of
Kellogg, like freaking shit like that.
Okay, well, let's see what happens.
Right, but it was J.P. Morgan ships.
Boom.
Smart.
That were caught with a ton of cocaine in Philadelphia in the past few years. Okay, and this is what they're doing. They're still shipping illicit drugs and making tons of money off of illicit drugs. So
let me interrupt you there for a second, because you bring up shipping. I just found an interview with Courtney Love where she was asked, when is the first time you did heroin? And she says, well, I'm sorry, when is the first time you tried cocaine? And she says, well, I thought it was supposed to be cocaine, but it ended up being heroin. And I did it with a Filipino shipping tycoon. And I thought that was so weird. She said, I was in Japan doing drugs with a Filipino shipping tycoon. Like it was just everyday life.
Right.
Yeah, boom, dude. Full circle.
So bizarre that you have to think, what in the world? And it only makes sense when you realize she was doing the bidding of the CIA. And that's as out there as it sounds, it starts to make sense when you realize that, yes, as a teenager, she was working for the Japanese mafia as a stripper. And this comes out in authorized biographies of her. She's working.
She actually got really PO'd at Melissa Rossi. Apparently, the whole slave trade part of it was not supposed to be mentioned, but Rossi mentioned it anyway.
Yeah. And so, Rossi went deeper than anyone else in her biography of Courtney Love, but it's well researched evidence. Rossi got a letter from Courtney Love's boyfriend from Love to her boyfriend saying, "I prostituted myself to get money to come back to you." Okay.
Oh, are you talking about the guy that was in the Portland band?
Exactly.
Roz?
Exactly. Yeah.
Rozabek or something
Right.
like that?
Right. And so,
Wow.
and so this is like, she admits that she was working as a prostitute, and her dad said she was tricking on the streets of Ireland in Dublin when he was there doing research for a book in Ireland. And so, and meanwhile, she just turned 17, and here she is prostituting herself. Her dad says, and she had been doing that in the United States. She was doing that in Japan when she was tripping, in Japan at college.
Okay.
This totally reflects all the stuff we were talking about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a Filipino shipping tycoon, and now we're talking. We've been talking about the trafficking and how she could possibly be involved. And she's like, she just happens to comment the first time I did coke, or she thought was coke, ended up being heroin or whatever. She's hanging out with it was given to her by a friggin' shipping tycoon, which would be like kind of like a billionaire.
Why is she so specific with the answer? If you ask me, had I ever tried it, I would be like, yeah, whatever. But I don't know that I would be like, yeah, it was with a blah, 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 blah. She went into quite a bit of detail. She could have been just like with this dude that, whatever didn't work out with him. It was in whatever, but wouldn't say his profession. I mean, I don't know. It's a little weird, detailed, but my thought process is, how did she get involved with them? How did she ever get like the hookup?
That's where I was going, because I heard something else. It wasn't Philippines, but I mean, there was something else with another like shipping thing, right? But I don't know. It's definitely odd.
Well, we talked about, we wanted to.
I thought that she could have been trafficked herself.
Yeah, we needed
because she was so money hungry. I think as a youngster, that she wanted that fame. She wanted money. Somebody sold her a bill of goods that you could like go in, like kind of Epstein Island. Go in there. You could be a massage person. You could make $100 a night or $200 a night. This is like late '80s kind of area.
Have you
87.
Like, did you watch something on her? Because I've never watched anything on her early life, and I should, but I haven't. It sounds like you watched a little bit of something.
Maybe I did. Yeah, I was probably like researching Courtney after we like got into it,
Yeah, I want to know a little bit more about her early life, because it would make.
Gotta look at my internet history.
Yeah, it would make things make a lot more sense. But yeah, okay. Well,
but it totally. I mean, I don't know how I came to the assumption. It wasn't someone told me that. It was I kind of like put two and two together on that. I think that she, no one has ever said this, but I believe that she probably was trafficked, and that she sold. She got her way out of it and ended up becoming a trafficker herself, like a part of that cog type, part of the machine.
The only way out is in. Yep.
Right.
Okay. Interesting.
Tripping, she said she was involved in live acts and stuff. So anyway, she's all involved in this stuff as a teenager. So of course,
it's normalized for her. It's like
normalized,
something
right. It's normalized for her. So whatever else you even think about her history, if she can be, if prostitution is normalized for her, of course the CIA can use her as a prostitute if they want to go and start a relationship with a guy and have get pregnant with him quickly, and he feels like, well, I got to do the right thing and marry her, which of course Kurt Cobain did, and then she completely ruins his life in different ways. I mean, she's just so out there. sleeping with Billy Corgan
And then Rando, she totally alienated his
Right.
friends from his hometown. She had no use for them. She just
right. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but the more important thing about the situation with her dad is that when she was visiting her dad, it all, it gets much deeper, and I won't go into the deeper part yet unless you want me to later. But she's visiting him, and he has a guy who like befriends him, who named Stephen O'Leary. Stephen O'Leary says, "Oh, I'm a big Deadhead, and I just want to say, I love that Dead. He used to be a manager for the Grateful Dead. Courtney Love's father, Hank Harrison.
Yeah, I believe he was the manager for the first lineup of the Grateful Dead.
The Warlocks, for the Warlocks, the first 6 months, and he stayed friends with Phil Lesh and all that stuff. But so he says, "Oh, I'm a big Grateful Dead fan. I really liked your book about the dead and all that. He befriends them." And so this guy then takes Courtney Love and takes her to Liverpool, where she has 1,000 hits of acid on her. All the mainstream biographies, talk about this, but whatever, she brings 1,000 hits of acid and distributes it to musicians in the upcoming Liverpool scene. Like
that would have been the 80s pop scene.
Pause it.
Yeah.
Teardrop
Yeah.
Explode.
80s
This
pop.
is. Go ahead.
He said the 80s pop scene.
Right. And so when he's talking about like she has like all these hits of acid, 100, like a panel of 100 little rip-off things, you can hand somebody like little chunk of paper and you're dosing, right? This I think is where he's tying in to MKUltra, which I was telling you was like an acid program that the government was doing. Well known. I mean, it's well known that program called MKUltra by our government was dosing Americans and studying them.
Okay, that's, to me, how did she get, I don't know, how did she do all of this so young? Because she wasn't that much older than Kurt, or maybe a year or two or something. If that.
I think she was like 3 or 4 years younger or older than him.
Okay, I just know she definitely got a jump on him with all this going on. Damn. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we really got to look back at. I mean, I've seen video of her like when she was young, kind of growing up, and the whole backstory of her growing up, which we really should do. I think it would be interesting for a lot of people out there. But you could tell, you could, like, when you look at the pictures. I mean, I know that it's kind of stereotyped to like look at someone and go that there's something off about them. You know, it could have been, she has some kind of autism, or I'm not sure what's going on, but you could see like in her young years, she was like kind of in that loopy realm, Yeah. And I, maybe as she was growing up in those early teens, that her whole thing was about like, moving on, getting what she, I mean, I heard stories that, she's like saying she never knew a time that she didn't want to be famous. So she basically, from the point that she like was conscious, she was like, I want to be famous.
That's crazy. I mean, I wanted to be famous, but like there was a certain point where reality, was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So now what am I going to do with my life? But
yeah, I think she didn't like take no for an answer. She just chased it.
Yeah. Wow. I wonder where, I can't remember where they said she was like raised exactly, but I really do need to look back.
Oh, she was born in San Francisco.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. I do want to look and see, because that's one thing I'll admit, I've never looked into her background at all.
Echo and the Bunnymen.
Right. Chewing coke and all that. And so, and so she duplicates the same actions as the assistant director of MKUltra. Okay. Now, MKUltra was a CIA project started in 1953 with 149 sub-projects. And and its own documents say that it's the use of drugs for unconventional warfare, okay? And so when you find out who they're using this drug for unconventional warfare on, when you think of warfare, you think of soldiers in foreign lands. But actually, what you find is that they're using these drugs on anyone who dissents against the government doctrine, anyone who dissents against war, who puts up, dissent against civil rights, against segregation, and and all that, and disenfranchisement of blacks and other people.
Disruptors.
Yeah. So that's who this was used against. One of the most famous first people they used some of these drugs, use psychedelics against, acid and other drugs against, was Paul Robeson, the famous singer who was known as the best singer in the world. He was a great actor. He was a Columbia University trained lawyer. He was incredibly spoken about civil rights. He was scheduled to meet with.
Who is that they're talking about?
Roy Orbison.
Oh, okay.
My mom loved him. He was like well known for wearing like in the like
Sunglasses.
50s or something, like sunglasses, like dark sunglasses.
Wasn't he blonde?
No, I don't think so. No,
Okay.
kind of like a nerdy Elvis looking dude.
Yeah, I remember seeing it. I just always assumed he was blonde because of the sunglasses, I guess. But yeah, I know who you're talking about. He had a couple of hits, or I don't know.
Yeah, no, he actually has some hits. I know so because my mom really loved him.
I'm pretty sure Pretty Woman is him.
Yes, Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
Pretty Woman.
Yeah. He's pretty
Walking
famous.
down
If he made that song, he's on up there.
The Che Guevara and Fidel Castro several weeks before he was dosed in a Russian hotel, in a Soviet Union hotel, like a Moscow hotel, where he was doing concerts there in the Soviet Union. He was politically targeted his whole life. They took away his passport for a while. He had done tons of worker organizing protests and rallies where he would sing and support the workers at strikes and rallies for union workers and farm workers and coal miners and et cetera.
Stiggy.
So he was a beloved activist by whites
yeah.
and
Hey,
blacks
Stiggy.
around the world for his activism. And so
Just real quick, was this a white or a black guy?
So Paul Robeson was a black man.
He was a black guy. Okay.
Yeah, and they
this is around what time is this?
This is 1961.
Okay, so a little bit different than things are today.
Yeah.
A lot different than things are today.
Yeah, sure. So he's got an adult son, Paul Robeson Jr., but he's in Moscow doing this, and they dose his drink with either BZ or LSD. His son didn't know which, but he thought.
Okay, BZ. That's a bit different. I've heard of this. That's more potent, more hallucinogenic.
Yeah, it's more potent than LSD, but if you put in enough LSD, they could be close to the same potency.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I don't know how much LSD,
Just for anybody who didn't know what that is.
Yeah, sure. BZ is just like a super psychedelic. But so they do that to him. He thought he was losing his mind. People didn't know what these psychedelics were in 1961.
Right.
Pause it.
Family in the United States. His adult son.
Yeah.
There was a time in my high school where it was a history teacher. I hate to laugh, but I mean, someone put acid in his coffee. I wasn't in there. I wasn't in that particular class, but it was this straight-laced freaking just like, cut and dry Kevin asshole, and yeah, somebody dosed his coffee and he, kind of like that whole balking like a chicken type shit out of the blue. Just like, dude, can you imagine? I mean, I don't know.
Was he self-aware at all of it, or was he totally?
No, he had no idea what was going on. You're being dosed and not knowing that you did it. Dude, can you imagine that insanity that you have? Because it when you take acid, that shit lasts for like 4 or 5 hours. You're writing a freaking, you have to choose it in order to like write it and like be able to cope with it. This teacher was just, why am I having these thoughts? What's going on? And like all of a sudden he's taking off his clothes and balking like a chicken type shit. It was freaking weird, man.
Did you just didn't get to see it? You just heard about it?
Yeah, it was in my high school, and it happened. I just wasn't a part of it. But I mean, the stories that I heard was pretty crazy. He was acting pretty nuts. I mean, you'd have to imagine, right? I mean, the ambulance came, took him away. Freaking,
Oh wow, I
mean,
didn't know that. Okay, that's a whole
Yeah.
other level. I bet the kid that did that felt a little bad there.
yeah, I can't remember if like the dude got caught or who, I don't know. You'd imagine that the story would actually pinpoint somebody, but I don't remember like actually one individual being, yeah.
That's
I
crazy.
mean, you have like people putting tax on people's seats and shit. But I mean, to dose someone's coffee and then just like, dude, can you imagine if that was on like if you had a camera back then, filming him being weird, dude, that shit would be viral as hell.
Yeah, it's so funny because where I live, no one would give away their LSD, not even for like an experiment or to laugh at their teacher. Like everybody's like, mine. So we're selfish with our drugs here in a poor, county.
All right, let's go.
Out there to see what's going on. These people dose his adult son also. Okay, so he had gotten dosed at a party that some anti-Soviet Americans had invited him to because they got in a room right next to his, and they talked him into coming to this party and then dosed his drink there. So they dosed his son. His son, said he was lucky he only got a sip of his drink and didn't go as intensely into, a long trip as his dad did. So they basically end up just really hurting his dad's mind. They convinced him to try, get hospitalized for what it did to his mind, and they gave him overly, high doses of ECT, electroconvulsive shock treatment. So this is just one example of what they did with psychedelics with this Project MKUltra.
Hold on, pause.
So Project MKUltra though had dozens and dozens.
What?
I don't know if I drifted for a second, but are they saying that so he got secretly dosed, starts tripping out, and their remedy, like back then, was to give him like when they like do that thing on your temples?
Electric
Like,
shock therapy, yeah.
Is that what they were saying? Like that's what happened to him in that instance?
Yes, and that his
Wow.
son was lucky enough to not have drank as much, so he didn't need it. He didn't require it.
That's crazy shit.
Dad drank too much or something.
I never heard that about this Roy Orbison guy.
Yeah, I've never either. I never knew he was involved in any of this. I just knew of him,
that they used as unconventional warfare, and it included your basic drugs everyone knows, like cocaine and heroin and all that.
Sure.
It also included all these other different exotic drugs, ecstasy, and Tuinals and Secanols and all kinds of other drugs that the CIA could come up with to use for this unconventional warfare. STP, things like that, DMT.
And they have the chemists. I'm sure they had all kinds of variations.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of the chemists were Nazi chemists that originally experimented with these kinds of drugs on concentration camp victims.
I'm sorry, at the beginning of this conversation, you said you kind of shrugged and you're like, people think it's crazy, but
so
I was one of those people, and now I'm like, oh my God, all this shit makes sense. And then I've read about Charles Manson and like, so continue. You're doing awesome, man.
Right, thank you. So the assistant director of MKUltra was a guy named Robert Lashbrook. In 1965, Robert Lashbrook was sent to London, and he came there. And this came from a book by A.E. Hotchner, who was one of the editors for Ernest Hemingway. So he's an established writer and historian, A.E. Hotchner. Hotchner writes a book about the history of the Rolling Stones and the London scene, and he says that this assistant director of MKUltra, Lashbrook, comes to London with loads of acid, loads of agents, and loads of money, and directs the agents to get the acid in as many musicians' hands as possible. Okay?
Really?
So they were targeting musicians, and this is the beginning of 1965. By the middle of 1965, George Harrison's dentist dosed John Lennon and George Harrison at a small dinner party where they just had, he had the two over with their partners, and dosed them.
The dentist?
The dentist gave them acid against their will. Okay, So that was part of MKUltra, obviously. I mean, again, this happened to also Mick Jagger, a guy, an undercover agent named Schneiderman, David Schneiderman, according to the Daily Mail, the London daily newspaper, said that an undercover FBI agent who also worked for MI6, which is British FBI, I'm sorry, MI5, which is British FBI, was considered the acid king, and he convinced Mick Jagger to try his first hit of acid. And so this again is an extension of MKUltra. And so this is what was going on. Now you jump 20 years later, and you're in the 1980s, and here's Courtney Love replicating those behaviors, trying to get.
She's every music scene that popped up since she was a teenager. She was right there in the middle.
Yeah, and distributing drugs like candy.
London, Portland, San Francisco, Chicago, Seattle.
Yeah.
It just amazes me. Like, how can someone always know where to go?
Right.
You know.
Now, so here we are
following the headlines.
Distributing acid like like candy all through.
Do you think maybe that's why she was able to assimilate herself with these musicians, because they wanted to experiment and she had drugs?
Well, I think she just pushed it on.
Yeah, that's an ingratiator.
Pushy character.
Well, she is, but she also.
I think she was just a groupie, and once she got with him, was like, "Hey, you want to fucking have this great trippy experience, whatever." And Kurt has in different interviews said like she was the loudest person in the room. She was dressed so you were going to catch her attention catching, whatever. Like you couldn't help but notice her, and that's what drew her and him together in a way. But I'm guessing she had something with the star sucker thing to get to these guys and then be like, come on, let's hook up and let's make it even more amazing by dropping us together or whatever. That's
right.
the end I see with her. I don't see her necessarily being sneaky and slipping it to him. I see her using like her feminine wiles or whatever you want to say.
No, I don't think I think it was blatant. If she had drugs, like if this guy is it's somewhat right, if she had just any drugs, you know what I mean? I think a lot of these guys, like in Seattle and shit, they were huffing paint. You know what I mean? They were literally sniffing glue. So if you actually had legit street drugs that and they're all hella poor. So I mean, if she just had drugs in abundance of any kind, they'd be like, dude, Courtney, come along, let's go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I just want to say, hey, Stiggy, thanks for being here. And I don't think you're a sub yet. Let's get you up here. And I know you saw conspiracy in the title, yeah, my ballpark. I know a lot of things you say definitely have a conspiracy tint to them. So, but welcome. This is your num de plum, your place to be. But hit that like and subscribe.
All of that, Stiggy. I'm with him on all of that. I'm looking at the very last sentence, and I'm going to have to say I can see that happening. That is such a hot topic, and so many people's lives are lost. So I don't know. That is a possibility. I know it almost sounds crazy, but also so true. If they could trace it back to the person, I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you there. There's something really.
Yeah, and your name's changed a bit, but I can tell by the way you're talking that it's definitely you.
Yeah.
So definitely hit that sub button. Let's get her up to 175. If we can get that done tonight, that would be freaking phenomenal.
Yep. I could have a celebration. I could go to sleep all celebratory instead of feeling all kind of sad and weird like I was earlier, but we're on
Sticky,
another.
have you ever been on panel before? She's saying next time I'll come up. I don't think I've ever seen you on panel.
No, I haven't seen her. I know.
I'd love to have that conversation. I know you got shit to talk on me.
We could have the big reveal of Stiggy, but no, I think she's made a promise that if she reveals, it's going to be on Team Roses, and I don't blame you. That's, you've been there.
Well, I just like to hear her voice.
Yeah. We need to figure out with my poor equipment here how to do a call in instead of the whatever, in case you didn't want to come up here, but it's not really a difference, just a voice. put anything you want to. Like, look
I'm
at
just
me.
curious, Stiggy, since you're here at the moment, are you is what we're like doing right here? Is it fun for you to like be listening to? I mean, I feel it's interesting. Did
Yeah,
you
I
catch
know.
that last live we did on Chris Cornell? I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah, I was going to
Soundgarden.
say a minute ago, like we get so kind of caught up in this that I even was like, wait, who are we talking about? So I was going to remind everybody, like, we're off Chris Cornell and we're on, it says it in the title, but just like for, if you are here with us on the last one, like that's in my head, like, oh my God, we got to switch. It's not Chris Cornell anymore. Courtney, Kurt, MKUltra, Tupac, whatever, they've all mixed up in here, CIA. Okay. Anyway, I'll start again before I go off to, Rose gets first choice and then me. Cool. I'm fine with that, Steve. I've always heard you say that, so you're a woman of your word.
Hell, number 2 ain't bad.
You know,
No.
a 17-year-old girl looking to have sex with them too.
Right.
And she also pushed drugs on at the same time. So she, like sold it with sex and drugs, whatever. But
Right.
and that's the way they sell lots of things is with sex, of course. But nonetheless, so Stephen O'Leary, who was guiding her, who took her to the Liverpool scene, he
The guy
ends
that
up
was friends with Hank Harrison.
who was temporarily friends with Hank Harrison. When this guy Stephen O'Leary got cancer young and died young, but he was with his brother Kevin O'Leary, according to Hank Harrison. But when he was on his deathbed, Stephen O'Leary, he wrote a letter to Hank Harrison. Hank Harrison published it in the first version of his book about his daughter, and that letter said, "Well, I wasn't officially, with the CIA or U.S. intelligence. I just reported to the embassy, the U.S. embassy weekly, when what I was doing because he was doing something for U.S. intelligence,
Some kind of subordinate.
Yeah, he was admitting that he was working for U.S. intelligence in some way, even though he was an official agent. Okay,
Wow.
and when he was traveling with Courtney Love. And having sex with her, and meanwhile he was also guided by his brother, and Hank Harrison says his brother appeared higher up from Stephen O'Leary. His brother's name was Kevin O'Leary, and so you see a lot of pictures with Courtney Love and Kevin O'Leary now, and people are like, "What's Courtney Love doing with Kevin O'Leary from Shark
Hold
Tank?"
on, pause.
Kevin O'Leary, but all I know is I verified this by finding an obituary of Stephen O'Leary.
No, there we go. I
think it's Tim O'Leary that is a well-known, big-time advocate of acid and dosing. He came up with some crazy-ass theories that actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't know him, but it says he's from the TV show Shark Tank.
Oh no, Timothy Leary is like I don't know, maybe like a
famous actor,
a 60s. No, kind of just known for his. Actually, I think he's a writer.
Oh,
but we can look into him at one point. But Sticky, just to let you know, because you look around and you see all these ranches. Right now, she can't ranch, but stick around.
Yeah, I definitely will. I've got to catch you and Truth Seeker because when I'm playing this, I can't do it, or who knows what'll happen with me trying to operate all types of stuff. So to be safe, I'll do it before I start a video or something. Promise you. You definitely got a place here.
Exactly when Hank Harrison said he was dying and died in I believe it was Minnesota, but I have a picture of the obituary in there. Kevin O'Leary is Stephen O'Leary's brother. That was this Stephen O'Leary died in Minnesota, spent a lot of time in Ireland at the same time that Hank Harrison said. So I verified all this through an obituary of this guy, and so I can't say I believe everything Hank Harrison says, but the stuff I repeated from Hank Harrison, most of it I could verify.
Right.
So this is the kind of stuff that backs the links. But there's so much more. I mean, the massive police cover-up of an obvious murder. You got Cyril Weck saying that this is a murder. I believe this is a murder.
I think that is it's amazing to me that what this guy says. I can't even remember how many autopsies he's been a part of, and he says, I asked him, how many times has this happened? Thinking he would say, "Oh, it's rare," and he said 0.
Right.
and nobody's listening to them. Why do we have world experts if they don't, and then you start thinking, well, who has the power to not listen?
Right. Who has the power to shut everyone up? Besides the fact that the partner is usually the leading suspect in the first place when there's a mysterious death, you also had the fact
so much money on the line.
Yeah, you had the fact that Cobain was divorcing her. So when that's happening, of course she's the top suspect.
Hey, you want to hear something really interesting?
Yeah.
I've listened to hours and hours. If you listen to Courtney long enough, she'll tell you stuff, because she just can't help it. And I think she knows that it doesn't matter anyway. Like nobody's going to do anything to me. She actually, there was a lot of talk about Kurt creating a will, obviously divorcing and creating a will.
Cutting her out of his
out. She says in an interview on a British radio station, after Kurt died, I had to go to court a lot. I was flying back to Seattle to go to court, trying to get rid of wills. And then she abruptly stops and changes the subject. So there was a will. Yeah. He did have a will in place that would exclude her. But unfortunately, he apparently died before he could sign it with witnesses. You have to have witnesses and an attorney present. So, but at some point, she did fight that will, and she let us know it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of people think that that's bullshit. A lot of, I guess, believers,
Closet,
whatever you want to call them, fans, they'll say there was no will.
Yeah, so there was no will originally. He requested it because he knew shit was going down. he was like going, I want to make it clear that this is where my money's going to go. It's going to support my daughter 100% and my family, right? He put that request in. Huh?
I'm sure he appointed someone over that other than Courtney, or I would think.
No, it was it was that woman that was in that catch-22. That was representing them both.
Oh,
but he called her up straight up and was like, I want a will made. And his intentions were clear. And so it's like, it got drawn up and he ended up passing away. And so now it's like, well, that's how, when it comes down where the money was hers and then it went to Francis, right? Yeah. The reason why it went to Francis is because that intention was held up by the court of law.
Yeah. And I mean, she is the true blood relative, whereas Courtney is by, a spouse. Here, they would truly give it to Courtney and let her decide if she wanted to share it.
They had a prenup.
Oh, okay. I forgot. Yeah, I was going to say here, it doesn't matter. Literally common law, you get 50%,
Right. And it's funny because the prenup was requested and, by Courtney, because at that time, Courtney had put out their first album, which was a really thrashy album, very, punk like kind of thing. Right. And so she had income from that. She had her at that time, where Kurt at that time was basically a nobody, just kind of like about to break out, in hindsight. So she requested the prenup. They got married, got pregnant, had the baby. He dies, and then she wants to claim, okay, let's get rid of the prenup. I want it all, but she got it by default. And then when Francis became, of age, and then Courtney screwing up and like all the crazy antics she does, ends up, the courts gave the money to Francis.
I mean, I think.
And if anyone that hasn't seen our Francis one, we did a really in-depth thing on Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love's child Francis, and kind of did actually. I thought we did pretty good on that.
Yeah, I actually looked a little bit more into her at the end. I wish I could have. I don't know where we cut it. I think I had a little bit more, but I looked, and she is a model now. She does model, and so she models, and I think dabbles with some fashion stuff. So like making her own. So she's a very like kind of successful on her own, kind of using that name to get her, somewhere. So good for her.
Hold on, pause it. Sticky
Okay.
says, I want you both to prepare at least for 1 month. Water, gas, food. This is so important. This is for a good reason. This time, Mermaid, I like for you to know what is going on. And you too, Dave. Thank you. Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah.
I tend to not worry that much about tomorrow. I'm kind of more in the moment kind of guy. So, I mean, if it ends up happening, anyone out there that believes that the world's ending or whatever, I mean, more power to you. I just tend to think that everything's going to be okay, until it isn't.
I mean, there's, a lot of people that prepare in case. And I know Katie, she does like homestead prepping with her canned goods. And so I respect that if that's, what you want to do. I think it's going to be a little bit, I can't even imagine for me, for 3 people, even for a month, that's a lot. I would have to have a nice little pantry, stored up. But
Right.
like, ideally, I'm with you there, like, because I always panic about my kids. But anyway.
I totally respect the, prepare for the worst. And that way, everything's great. I mean, like definitely prepare. I mean, you should have like maybe like because Top Ramen's hella cheap. Like you can get like I don't know, like 24 or I don't know the pack, but I mean, you can get like 24 Top Ramens for like $4 on Amazon. I mean, people should really get into Amazon. There's great like wheeling and dealing you can do, like a flea market where you can get like freaking like a lot of like cupboard stuffers.
Yeah, that's literally in my cabinet now. We always keep ramen and we always keep popcorn because that's, cheap, feels whatever. And like we always have peanut butter, like just certain things that like they're cheap, but they're like
they last a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, whether that's like really the most healthy thing or not, it is what it is. But
it'll keep you alive.
Yeah, and so we do have stuff like that. I don't know if it would be a whole month worth. I'd really doubt it, but anyway, we do have some stuff like that. I would have to say. There's something else I was going to say, and I don't remember it. It was something stiggy. I see Dave, I think, believes it's possible. He's just saying that he's laid back and he doesn't really care to prepare. I mean, I think that's kind of it.
Yeah. Like, now, if somehow Trump comes back in, I'll be on your friggin' tip. I'll be like, dude, what I gotta do? What I gotta do? Like, it'll stress me the fuck out. So I know that I screwed up the first time. Wasn't able to like make it a what do you call it? Where he's like a dictator. You know what I mean? Like he didn't succeed the first time. Definitely the second time. It's like I'm not gonna fail this time.
Yeah, I didn't see this. So not the end of the world, just the end of an evil era. And so like within a month, we should transition into something different. I mean, I literally was going to say on here this earlier when I first got on and sang that first song, I almost cried. But I was going to say, like, I need Rose to help me figure out how to get into a different timeline because this one apparently is like a little depressing for me. So I'm open to whatever if it could possibly work. I don't know.
Anyway. And also, Sticky, I think it would be great if, like, maybe you know, how you kind of, I don't know, I feel like a lot of times maybe you kind of like take Rose on tangents that I wouldn't really prefer. But I mean, I think a great tangent that you could like introduce and like say, this would be a great thing to talk about would be, you know, kind of like a prepping situation and how you can prepare for, you know, whatever. I mean, no one expects to have their power go out for a month or 2 months. I mean, can you imagine living in existence with no power?
I mean,
or, you know,
now you've got Katie
or no water. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, people really, it does happen, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Katie would probably come up and be part of the conversation since she kind of is doing that as her, you know, her business. So there's probably more, Stiggy, that, you know, y'all could have like a good discussion about it.
Yeah, we should do it. That should be our next live.
Oh, we should do it? Okay. Well, but Stiggy's
we'll just sit there and research and like friggin' like watch a bunch of like people talking about like, you know, here's the cheapest way to have like a month for this one person, and like friggin' like, you know, how can you know, it's not a bad thing, you know, paranoid or not, it's good to be prepared. You know, I
We
totally am
just gotta get
about
Steve.
preparedness.
We got to get you on Rose's and get that checked off so you can come be on mine for that one. That's what we need to do. I missed Rose earlier today, or I would say, I don't know what her new kind of topics or we could get you.
No, she shouted you out. She said something at one point, like, you know, that we need to support you. So that was nice for her to say.
Awesome.
You should clip that, you know, put that up as a little, you know, it was a really quick thing. I might have missed other things that was promoting, but I thought it was nice.
Yeah, I went on one of hers, but it was very early, like 20 people were on it. I just said, good morning, you know, beautiful Rose or something. And it seems like she was in a something with Lionel. And she was kind of like, just, hey, you know, but that was it. She was calling him a scumbag. I don't know. They were in some kind of tiff.
And actually, in that live, there was a bunch of fake people's names. Like PCT came in there. And you know, fake names that were just like created like a month ago, and like but one of them was Mission came up and went on panel, and it was, you could tell it was a chick, and fuck you suck my dick. Like, it was comedic.
Was it Nicolina? I know she's trying to.
I know that Team Rose calls that out all the time, but no, I don't think it was. I don't know, it was just some weirdo freaking chick that had I don't know, these freaking trolls, it really ruins things for me. You know, I mean, it's funny when that kind of thing happens, but I mean, I don't know. People just like are so bored.
Yeah,
I'm ready for your continue when you want.
Yeah, the whole Mission Lionel thing, I'm so lost and confused, but whatever. Support a Rose, no matter. So they're kind of strange anyway. Love Lionel, but I don't know about the other dude.
He loved her, blah blah blah. She admitted it in a radio interview.
Yeah. You know, there's so much more to that too. But
I have a good question for you.
Yeah, sure.
As far as obviously these musicians, and I tried to explain to my audience, Lennon, Cobain, Tupac, even Biggie, these weren't just regular celebrities. These guys had obtained a level of fame beyond a lot of celebrities, and especially Cobain and Lennon. Yeah. Their opinion could sway entire populations of youth. So,
yeah, no doubt.
I guess what I'm asking you is, attacking these people with drugs, is it just to lower their ambition, to sort of get their mind on, you know, drugs and away from anything political?
Pause it.
No, I think it's partly manipulating them.
Yeah, if I were like thinking in that, it would be destabilization. You make so much chaos. I mean, like that you have all these people out there acting odd and strange, and you got arrests and you got conflict, and by doing, like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I feel like that's kind of like if you went into, like, say he's right, and Courtney would go into an environment, into a city, and just like spread 100 like doses of acid all in one day, and then all of a sudden you have the whole freaking community on acid. That would cause chaos, you know?
Oh, I mean, for sure. And they would be at some point, you know, there's always people that, you know, one's not enough. They would want to do it again. They would try to find her, you know, and pretty soon they would become somebody that was around a lot.
Right. She's like the go-to.
Because most addicts.
So she would like him. She would actually make herself indispensable.
Yeah.
Actually. Right.
Yep. And she loves shit like that. I mean, you heard her bragging about I don't know what the word is now, unliable, or she can't be sued.
Right.
No one
right.
can sue her.
She can't sue anybody because she's such a fuck up.
And she loves it. She's bragging. So it's the same.
I think that I don't think that she was bragging. She was basically saying like freaking like. Actually, I think she felt kind of sad that I'm like that much of a loser. But I mean, you know, that is, you know, you are who you are.
If she's saying it out loud, she's got a little bragging going on in there.
I don't know. That's like to be or not to be. She chose it. She's living it. I guess it's kind of like embracing it. That you know, that's me. And of course, you would celebrate it as like that big of a rock star. I'm like that person like that thrashes the freaking hotel room. You know what I'm saying? But I
think
mean,
at first she was
she fucked
offended
up.
by anything at all. I think she was super offended and hurt and whatever, whether it was fake or not. And now I think she's like, okay, you want me to be the trashy bad bitch? Okay, I'll be it. And I mean,
Well, she was always that though.
yeah, I'm just saying, if the people that did feel sorry for her because of Kurt, because of the daughter, it's kind of like, oh, that was fun, but not as fun as being the bad bitch. I don't know. That's just my thing. Sitting on the front of the lawn in the white dress and crying with the fans and stuff is not as exciting as being the trashy badass bitch tearing up hotel rooms. And I think she wears that label proudly. I don't know. That's just me.
Well, I mean, what else can you do?
Yeah.
I mean, in her position, I mean, either you embrace it or you're ashamed. And she is not one to admit being ashamed.
Yeah, and we see the connection kind of with Vicky Cornell being a little baby step into Courtney Love, definitely baby step, but changing the name back immediately, finding a man immediately. Yeah, I don't know, stuff like that blows my mind. Like I
Yeah,
said,
that's like immediately you go to a lawyer. That's how it sounds. Like, okay, my husband's dead. He has all of these assets. How do I game plan this? How do I chessboard this where I get everything? Right? Yeah. It just totally sounds like Courtney in her ear going, this is how you do it. This is how I did it. This is how you do it.
And extort basically these other dudes that, work their ass off. This is their life's work, and these guys are famous. They've played in other bands and just came back together. And then they have these lost recordings that Chris wrote, but they also kicked in and helped, and they're not hers. End of story. Yeah. They're not hers.
Crazy.
I don't know.
See, that's where laws, a law, it's like this is how things work, right?
It makes me sad. It makes me sad to think that these guys were such geniuses and such amazing. Just I don't know. Me and my goo goo gaga over them, but. Like they wanted to be loved, and these women may have legit never loved them. They walked into it with an idea, with an agenda. They never ever fucking really loved them. That's
what is the Yoko Ono syndrome?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. I'm going to tell you, I know about it. I literally talked about it before you came on here. You probably listened to me, but that shit it's heartbreaking for them to not even have the good memories.
And it really exposes how much pussy works. You know what I mean? Like,
or drugs, one of the two.
No, dude, it's literally like, I don't know. Feel like, even though at that time he was probably getting laid like everywhere, right? But I mean, when, you can get enticed and like get smitten. I mean, love is a crazy thing when it comes to just like endorphins and that whole love. You feel like nothing can go wrong. You're just happy.
And there's a difference between love and lust. And I don't know that Kurt had certain. I mean, he was a romantic. He was. I don't know. He said that he picked her out of the room like she was everything he wished he could be. He was. She was loud.
Well, she's a salesman. That she's like saying, "I am everything you want to be. That you want."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, she's selling that everywhere. Like she's like, she has no shame in how she sells herself.
She probably lap danced him immediately. She got him spied out. I mean, and she didn't let up. It.
Oh God.
So different. I can just.
She was like a spy. She was like a spy to me. Like freaking like everything she did was calculated. She's like plotting. Like friggin' like, how am I gonna do? Okay, this guy, that guy, that direction, this band, that like she's like I don't know how you would like even think so hard on it that you know what I mean? Like friggin' how am I going? Every little bit I do, I'm getting a little bit more fame, I'm getting more known, and all how am I gonna get like on that big stage? And she was like
Lolita. Hollywood Lolita is what I would call her.
I don't know.
I mean,
definitely at that time it was the grunge Lolita.
Yeah, she, like I said, it makes me sad that that's what she did. That she went into it like that, and that these guys never really knew it. Like she concentrated on their lust and on you know, how she could kind of lure them in, like we've said, the Black Widow kind of thing. And then once she gave them some drugs, they were, you know, more naive and susceptible to whatever. And then they were like addicted to her as well. It was a codependent, not just the drug, but just her attention, her words, her whatever.
And money. So like not just drugs, but I mean money, influence.
Yeah,
Like the Kardashian aspect of it. Like I'm kind of getting famous now. If you're around me, you're gonna get kind of famous too. You know what I mean? Like freaking, there's a whole. It's all this whole power
Barrymore,
image.
You know, she's with a certain group that's always in the focus eye. You know, like I said, Drew Barrymore, she's been in the focus since 6 or 8 years old. So she is hanging with circles of people that could help him. But it's so weird. He seems so distant. And like, is he really like jumping up and down for the help? Or is he just wanting to live his life, get a message out? And like, she just comes and like bombards that. I don't know. I just see something like really strange with that. And like I said, I have actually been in a situation like
parasite. Actually, as we're talking, all I can see is like a parasite.
Yeah, but to me, there's a difference in what she's doing and how she feels and how these guys feel or whatever. And like, there are rare, oh my God, rare occurrences where pheromones or whatever the hell, I've only had it happen once, but like when you first meet a person, like you just, I'm automatically, you know, it
lasts for like a month. You know, like freaking, like you're like
there's not a whole lot of, hey, my name is so and so. This is my heart. I mean, it's pretty quick, like, you know.
Yeah, all you can think about is that person. You're like freaking like.
No. I'm saying like while the first meeting, it's like there's some kind of weird like animal attraction type, like I don't know, like there's going to be some connection before we end this night. Like there has to be some physical contact, like. It's an intense, like, has to happen situation.
Like we were talking about, like a Lolita, you know, like freaking, like, I mean, you can
spinning it that way. She's making them believe that, but I'm just saying, I've only had that happen to me one time where it was just like it felt legit anyway, but it was just very fleeting. It wasn't something that ended up lasting. It was like it had to have been more of like a pheromone and I don't know, endorphin, something. That I can't explain.
Like saying a biological drug.
And if I told you who
that you're producing,
if I told you who, you would laugh so fucking hard, and it ain't my ex either. So funny, so funny. I was just talking about that too before I started this, about checking my Facebook. Anyways, I still haven't done that in a few days actually, to see if anybody's whatever accepted request.
To lead them to promote these drugs inadvertently, you know. So when people like I as I said, I do psychotherapy for a living, and I used to, you know, do a lot of addictions counseling. And I had a young talented guitarist who had a heroin problem, and I said, so what? You know, when did it start? What influenced you to start using heroin? He said, well, I loved Kurt Cobain, and I thought that it could give me that edge that Kurt Cobain had.
Creativity.
Yeah, and so
pause.
So, you know, and I show the documentation of this when
I heard that about Sublime, or the lead singer of Sublime, that he believed. I also think I heard that about another band, you know, in that era. But I do believe I've heard interviews about him, about the lead singer of Sublime, that he believed that the key to having legendary music was by doing heroin. So he believed that before they ended up like actually pulling it off. But I mean, maybe he's right. Is there some kind of like heroin connection? What does heroin do biologically that allows you to tap into something that the masses will enjoy? But I think that is a common thought in, I think, a lot of bands' minds, that maybe there is some kind of heroin genius connection, you know?
Yeah, my kid brought up a really good comment in passing, and said, like, what if, and there is no documentation of, to my knowledge, Chris Cornell ever being an IV user, or if he ever did, not being more than like a once or twice kind of thing. That just wasn't his deal. She said, wouldn't he have the exercise band in his room, carrying it from place to place as a tourniquet to shoot up?
That is interesting because yes, you're right. But I mean, you wouldn't have it be like 8 feet long. It would be
Well, it
more
would
like
just be whatever would do, and that's tight. It's rubber. I mean, it would work. It would tie off.
it would totally work. Yeah.
And I don't know why my kid came through here and just said that, but I was like, he wasn't known as an IV user, and she's like, nothing.
Yeah, no. The
And I said, not
when
that
you
I
see
know
like
of.
in movies about heroin, they're
Mhm.
using like surgical tubing, you know,
Well,
like you would go to a medical store.
She's saying, like, you use a belt, you use whatever to tie it off. She's just saying
Yeah.
he can use that rubber band. And I mean, he could have, but he was not known for that. Like, I just don't see him doing that, especially in the 41 hours and the blah, blah. They would have mentioned that. It would have made their story so much easier that he shot up, and it made him feel a certain way. And he did this and blah,
And that's
blah.
why he would have it.
Yeah. So
I mean,
don't know.
actually, when you said that, I kind of like, kind of didn't really think really hard on it, but I do think I had like a suspicion going, I don't know. Do you really see this guy like doing like a resistance training workouts like in his free time? I don't think so.
I don't know, but he was always kind of the dad. He was always, even when he was with Andy and then when they overdosed, like he had a job, he was getting married, like he was always kind of more mature. And I don't think he really dove into the whole IV drug use thing. So when she said it, I brushed it off, but I also was like, I want to mention that because that is, an odd factor. We've been saying, like, why would he have one? Maybe it's because of this. Maybe it's because of that. Anyway, maybe it's because of that. But anyway, I'll start it again before I ramble too much more.
Good point.
The mid 90s, from like 90 to 95, the amount of heroin use went up astronomically. So they were successful at promoting heroin through these alternative musicians, sadly enough. And now what happened was all these musicians also threatened to promote sobriety in the last months of their life. Cobain said he found a cure to his stomach problem, and he says, and the best evidence is that he wasn't using any drugs in the last months of his life. To this day, Courtney Love says that one of the reasons he killed himself was because of his stomach problems. Although he was in an interview saying the stomach problem is cured. Right. He finally found a medicine that could cure cured his stomach problem, and he, they basically the authors of Who Killed Kurt Cobain and Love and Death, Halpern and Wallace, said they got the blood test from Rome, and they talked to the doctor in Rome, and it was completely clear of any illicit drugs. And everyone knows, well, you shouldn't, I mean, not everyone knows, but I know because I was in addictions counseling for a while, that heroin and cocaine stay in your system about 3 to 5 days. And if you're a heroin addict, you need it every day. And so if you were using heroin, if you were an active heroin addict, you would have to have heroin in your system at the time. He had no heroin in his system whatsoever. So he was not an active heroin addict at that time. And that blood test was done about a month before his death. And, from the situation where he got the roofies in his champagne, I did not know that. Prescription. That was Courtney Love's prescription, yeah. So the Rohypnol. Rohypnol is roofies, yeah. Didn't she claim he took an entire prescription, like 50 pills or something ridiculous? Yeah, that's what she claims. But the best evidence is, since they were her prescription, and the only reason he saw her then is to see his, Frances, to see his daughter Frances. So she brought Frances to him when he was in Rome, and and she put the Rohypnol in his drink, most likely. I'm not saying I know that, but it was her prescription. She brought her prescription into that room, and obviously the best evidence is that she put him in his drink. Put it in his drink. Could it be possible that maybe he took one or two, and then she put more in his drink, so he just thought, man, that really kicked my butt, when he wakes up 2 days later. That's possible too, sure, but
Pause it.
The doctor did say that there was not
This is a really interesting aspect right here. But this made me think about the conversation with Kurt's brother, where this same American Spy Fox went there and talked to him, and that's where I think I was kind of going there, talking about when they were discussing the autopsy results, the report, that the drink that was found next to Kurt Cobain, when they sampled the drink and they like analyzed the drink, it was a soda can, it had drugs in it. That's a fact. They literally like took a syringe and friggin' like pulled that fluid out and tested it, and there was a certain type of drug in there. We should probably like do that next, like friggin' like American Spy Fox. I don't know, maybe 2 months ago or something, talking with Kurt Cobain's brother.
Do they go over the death scene? Like the actual?
No, it's basically just him. They like sitting in his living room, and it was kind of awkward. He's not a great interviewer. Not a great. He's like one-on-one with a actual human being. He doesn't seem like as fluid as he is in his little cuts and edits on these videos.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it was clear as day when they were reading the actual autopsy, and Spy Fox didn't know at the time that freaking about this whole soda can that was found next to Kurt Cobain after he killed himself, that in that drink. So who would I don't know. I mean, it kind of raises suspicion going, would you put drugs in a drink in order to drink it, or would you just pop them?
Or did
I think it might have been benzos, like some kind of it was a knockout type of drug. I don't know if it was the rohypnol. I don't think it was. But, I mean, it's weird
they used that other weird name for drugs earlier, something with a B, but it was like a acid times 10 or something.
Right.
So it could have really threw him for a loop. But was there not?
I don't think it was a. It definitely wasn't. It was a sedative. So whatever was, I can't remember exactly what it was, but in a soda can found next to Kurt Cobain, at the scene of his death, there were drugs in the soda can.
Well, when you were talking about that and you watched something about it a few days ago, did you not say there were syringes as well?
Where?
Around him, nearby.
Yeah, he had a kit, and freaking
yeah.
The thing is he dosed himself so high on heroin, but also had the ability to clean the syringe, put the syringe back in the case.
Yeah, that's
before he did the deed. I mean, definitely.
He'll pull that trigger at certain angle. There's so many questions there. I mean, I totally get that. You could tear that scene apart.
Yeah, and then I guess the dosage that he had in his system was so high. I mean, people were saying okay, well, I mean, I've heard it that people have this tolerance level. You end up doing so much, you do so much all the time. It's almost it's nothing. But I mean, the dosage that he had in his system when they did the autopsy was insane. It was so you're so fucked up that you can't articulate anything. I mean, when you used to watch these heroin dens where these people hit their opium and shit, they pass the fuck out. They go basically unconscious.
Yeah, they're slobbering like zombies and stuff. I mean, I hate to say it, but they can't really talk.
Yeah, they're gone.
He's writing in a notebook.
They're dreaming. They're in a dream environment immediately. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, have you not seen he was writing in a notebook? He was active. He was not, slobbering, messed up, about to pass out. He was writing in the notebook. He was, probably smoking, had a lighter nearby. I mean, I don't know. He was just chilling where they said that's where he would go. You know, maybe
it's just so sketchy,
In the song,
I don't know.
I know people keep going back to things that are, conspiracy, super conspiracy. But
Yeah.
I don't have a gun. I don't have a gun. Like, and I know that
Yeah.
was way before, but
This is where like how you're like passionate about like I just know. I don't know, but I know.
I don't
This
know.
is
I'm
on
not as
Kurt Cobain. I am in that realm. Like I just know. You know what I'm saying?
okay.
All
Well,
right, let's go.
what's weird? What's weird, Dave, is you get to pick up the slack on this one because I'm not as passionate. I am passionate, but not as passionate as I am about Chris and Lane and Andy, which Lane and Andy, it's not the same. It's totally different. But
Yeah.
anyway.
No. There's like so many there's on Kurt. It's like, dude,
I mean, it's there.
anyone that's in that realm going, yeah, no, he totally just did it to himself.
There.
I look at you going, who are you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm on the page, but I'm just saying, I think you get to put the dash of the passion into this one because you really love Nirvana, whereas I'm, loving definitely.
I like Nirvana. You could probably like tint towards love, but I'm just going when anyone likes that is true crime and look at Kurt Cobain from beginning to end and all the information that's out there, everything that you could actually, if you like just saw it all, you knew it all, we could like take it all and put it in your brain. And you like went to the going, yeah, for sure he killed himself. Nah, dude, I think you're totally delusional.
This is what's sad to me. I'm gonna like sum it up, and I never can sum up anything short. But I see that he was built up to destroy. She built him up all from the jump to destroy. She built him up to destroy. I mean,
but then again, like, why didn't she clear up the like? I don't know. How do you like get
she had to grab an opportunity. I mean, I guess she grabbed
right. But I mean, she got what she wanted, right? I mean, in a way, she did. The prenup fucked her. She would have owned it all if the prenup didn't exist. But also in that aspect, she's like in this realm of going, it's like the lottery. Like you have like, I have an idea this might work, like he's going to blow up and he's going to be the next badass thing in the world.
But
she was hedging her bets. That's why that whole prenup came in.
It's a flipping of a coin. What does she have to lose? He's going to go sign those papers, or I can catch him before he signs those papers.
Yeah. That's where I'm like going, yeah, totally.
Yeah. That's
clear as day.
He grabbed her opportunity, period. Okay.
It's like if you just if you have no, I mean, you're just selling your soul. I mean, that's what she did. She sold it. It's gone. We talked about it earlier. I sold it for a big guy.
And I mean, who knows? She could be still trying to do that out there somewhere.
She's like 80 years old now, so
no, like actually she was on stage with Evan Dando. Like they used to hook up back in the day, and she showed up backstage and they played a few songs together and he brought her out. And so she's actually going around kind of just visiting her old haunts and her old men and just making appearances. So she's still kicking it. So I don't know who her eyes on now, but God bless them. All right.
50 pills in his stomach, or he said no, this wasn't a suicide attempt. He didn't take the entire prescription. The narrative that Courtney was giving the media was not correct.
Gotcha.
John, I must have not have paid my membership this month. If you would like to talk more, we just have to start over again.
Yeah, we can do that. Sure.
Okay, but we still have a couple minutes. In the near future, people have been asking me to talk about Tupac. I don't know a lot about Tupac. That's something I've just started reading about.
Yeah.
But if you would care,
I'll try to give it in a nutshell. Tupac was a lifelong radical activist. Because
I do know his mother was a Black Panther, I believe.
Mother was a Black Panther leader, one time leader of the Harlem Black Panthers. His father was a Black Panther. He was raised, by Black Panther extended family. He by the time he was 17 years old, he was elected the youngest ever national chairman of a group called the New African Panthers, which was trying to replicate the Black Panthers. So he was already, a national Black leader before he became a rapper. Once he became a rapper, he took on a new plan. He pretended to be a gangster, in order to appeal to gangs and politicize them. That was part of his Black Panther extended families work in trying to get the Bloods and Crips to call peace truces and turn on to activism. And so that's not who he really was, even though he acted like a gangster. You know, he really was a dedicated Black activist leader who was a, you know, like an intellectual prodigy. He read dozens of PhD level books. I mean, really.
I actually heard he published a book of poetry at like the age of 19.
Yeah, he
I have
finished.
to
Like
say I like
beautiful
him.
poetry. It's not, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he had finished the poems in that book, you know, before he was even like 20 or so. Yeah, right. And so, you know, then it came out after his death. But he had read, you know.
Did you ever see the movie Poetic Justice with Janet Jackson and Tupac? Dave, my lovely.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so I think I have seen kind of like clipsy things of it where he's like maybe 19-ish,
Yeah, so
young.
this that film would have been filmed around the same time as this book was published. And he does write some, you know, even though it does have that political in it, he does write some beautiful poetry. I do like him in general more than most rap. I'm not a huge rap fan. I do have like a select, like, I'm very snobby about what rap I like. I know that's weird, but like,
I'm similar.
I have a select few that I'm just like, yeah. And then I have some that I'm just like, that's trash. No. It's same with all music really, but like more so with that and country, I'm a little bit more picky. But anyway, all that aside, he was to be so young. You know, he had better than my little journals over here with my little bullshit lovey-dovey stuff. Like he had a solid, you know, writers. Like even if he would have never went anywhere rapping, like I think he would have had a pretty solid writing career in some way, some shape, some form. He had
Right, definitely intellectual. You know, he was brought up that way, kind of how they were saying. You know, I think the mother is really bright herself and brought him up in an intelligent environment and like philosophy and just like thinking about the big picture type shit. You know,
and honestly,
totally. That's who he was.
Honestly, I could see Kurt having I could see him being just, I mean, hell, I had to take philosophy. I could see him sitting beside me in a philosophy class and, you know, me and him being in a group conversation about something. I could see him and Tupac sitting down and having, you know, a strange and very powerful, you know, whatever. But
back and forth, just like, you know, my idea, your idea. I love that shit.
They have another side to them that I forget. I forget with all the fantastical, you know, stuff. But they really do have this whole other side that they don't get to show us because it makes it less, you know, dreamy and less, you know, whatever. Like they don't get to show us that part of them. But you know, there are some people, like I said, there's a word for it, and I made my child look it up the other day, and now I don't remember it again. But where people are attracted to intelligence, they don't look at appearance, they don't look at age, 0. Right. It's the more intelligent.
And I think that kind of what they're talking about is the influentials, the people that like can influence masses, like because music is everywhere. If it becomes hella popular, it can change minds and people can follow. You know, like someone like having like 100,000 stadium and have them like respond with whatever they want them to respond to, that interaction, you know, burn down the house, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
they could it reminds me of like Trump, like in that stadium going, let's go to the Capitol building, guys. And like everybody like, oh, okay, you know, let's go. And freaking all of a sudden you got like something happening. They don't want that to happen.
It's like her though, like she yelling, everybody call him an asshole, and they're just like asshole. You know, it's like this whole. It really is like almost a mind control situation, and it is messed up that they did have that reach. Like some people call Kurt, even though I disagree, the king of grunge. Some people call Tupac, you know, kind of the birth of like hip hop, even though that's not even right. That's more LL Cool J, Beastie Boy. Like, I don't know. I'll disagree.
I mean, I just want to reflect on the government right now. Everyone knows the government wants to be a snail, right? They want to move slow. They don't want to freaking like have change. They don't want to change quick, right? And I think that people that have influence, people that freaking, especially music, because it is passion. There's passion behind music. That freaking that I kind of see their aspect that they would want to stymie out anyone that can influence masses, because like how you have like these, even like these
Not
kind of
just
like
money. It's not just money. It's that
no, you can like I could tell you all, I would be like, hey fans, everyone do what I want you to do right now, and they would do it.
Yep.
That's different than a movie star doing it. The music fans are different. They're more passion oriented, they're more about feelings, I think.
Yeah, and there's a lot of music. There's a lot of money that changes hands, and not a lot of tracing where that money's going. So you have that whole evil, stuck in there too somewhere, where you're paying for speakers and roadies and security and and you have so much going on that you could, smuggle some money here and there, and you could do a lot of stuff for the government if you know what I'm saying. Like more could be hidden in music, I think, than actually even in some Hollywood sets. Like you could get really lost in all the little ins and outs that musicians have to deal with to set up a concert or a tour, or I don't know.
Yeah, and since we're kind of like this MKUltra thing, and I was like bringing up like the whole acid program they were doing, the drug program. There's stories that JFK's brother, when he got killed in there was like this room where he got killed, that there were these two kind of like 16-year-old-ish type of vibey kids that were like running out saying, I just killed RFK or whatever, like there's stories about kind of witnessing these freaking like bubbly, like kind of like Manson-y type of vibe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like weird shit,
Well, it just mentioned they've said that about him before this. And Stiggy, I just looked over. I'm trying to keep up with comments. She does believe Tupac is still alive, so that's interesting.
Well, not really. I mean, Stiggy.
I've heard it.
No offense, Stiggy, but I mean, some of your takes, I look at and go, "What the fuck is she thinking?"
I've heard it. I've heard that, and then recently we've gotten more information. So I don't know. I'd like to believe that all of my rock and roll heroes are still in my seven wonders, are not gone. That Jim Morrison's still kicking it somewhere, But I don't think that's how. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, I'm wrong. I don't know.
So what is Stiggy? If you're still here, if you want to comment, what do you mean President Trump was an hour late to that? Last one was thank you for listening to what I know, and remember, love deeply and forgive quickly. I embrace that, and accept access denied unless they sincerely change. Love you both, and remember, conspiracy equal reality. Trust me. Well, yeah, conspiracy is a thing.
I mean, it always is good for a discussion anyway, can't hurt.
Oh yeah, it's definitely something to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go.
Yeah. Well, let's go.
Just actually what talking heads
described in his book, looking at his huge library that he read before he was out of his teen years. So he's an intellectual prodigy who only hid behind this gangster facade. It's too bad people didn't get to know that side of him. He would rewrite Shakespeare plays and produce them and star him when he was still in high school. Wow. And that's what he could do because he was so brilliant. But sadly, there was about 6 attempts to kill him, all linked to U.S. intelligence before they were successful. And, and it's just like a high-level police detective in Los Angeles, Russell Poole. Poole ends up dying young because of the honest work he was doing, sadly enough. But first they demoted him for his honest work when he found dozens and dozens they demoted him. He found dozens and dozens of his fellow police officers at all levels of death row records. And he asked his superiors, what are they doing there? And the superiors said you can call them troubleshooters or covert agents. That was their words, and so they were, so when you look at everything death row was doing, they were trafficking drugs, They were trafficking guns. They were trying to end the Bloods versus Crips peace truce that Tupac had helped engender. And so they were doing all the opposite of what Tupac was trying to do. Tupac was doing his activism with his Black Panther extended family. But so Death Row Records appeared to be a U.S. intelligence front company. Now, of course, Snoop was,
I know in the 90s it was $1 billion. For anybody who wants to maybe laugh at that, it was $1 billion company.
Yeah.
This was a huge moneymaker.
And so, they were instantly huge. And they, they were doing all kinds of criminal activity, according to Russell Poole. And the police weren't doing anything about it because they were part of it. And so that's the sign of a, U.S. intelligence front company, of course. Let me see. I had left off with the fact that the situation with Tupac Shakur, really, it just showed the evidence of, U.S. intelligence was very active in the 90s. According to Russell Poole, his fellow officers, he told award-winning filmmaker Nick Broomfield that he believes that his fellow police officers in the Los Angeles Police Department murdered Biggie to cover up the murder of Tupac Shakur.
To make it seem like an East Coast, West Coast gang rivalry.
Exactly.
That makes complete sense.
Yeah, because Biggie wasn't political. But, of course, Tupac was very political and was going against...
Biggie sort of championed poor Black communities, a lot of his lyrics, from what I've read, was just sort of, I hate to use this word, but sort of justifying the criminal actions of young Black men because they're just trying to feed their children, and that we don't have opportunity. So what else are we going to do?
But which isn't terrible, but it was he was a good writer, good songwriter, good rapper.
Oh, absolutely.
About just reflecting what was going on in Brooklyn at the time,
right.
His neighborhood where he grew up. And of course.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't think he had a bigger worldview than that. I think he was innocent. He's just from the heart,
Right.
Where
Pause.
Was probably involved in a lot.
This is my criticism of the American Spy Fox. You're great. Thank you for the content. But in his interview, he hasn't really learned how to, when you have a guest and you're like you want to get as much information out of them as possible, you let them talk. You know what I'm saying? Stop navigating him and let him freaking just spill his guts. You know what I mean? If you're going to comment, your comments should be pointed towards talk more. He should be just like one word shit. You know what I'm saying?
Like when he says his answer, say, well, how so? And then he can expand on it, leave it open.
Exactly. What he's doing right here in this situation, he's trying to navigate the situation. He's like going, okay, well, my take is this. And then it totally disrupts the guest's point of view, right?
Yeah.
Changes the subject. He's changing the subject. Let the guy freaking roll. You know what I'm saying?
And it's weird. The guy points out the more you let Courtney Love talk, the more she tells on herself. That's kind of true about anybody. The more you loosen up. It was like
let him talk.
When I was singing earlier, the first part of the song wasn't so good, but by the end of it, I was in that shit. I was about to cry. I was in it 100%. So I think, the further you get into anything, you do loosen up. You do, I don't know, I think that's kind of a given. And this guy might have more information. We don't know. Because like you said, the way the interview's done, and again, not criticizing because clearly I'm not perfect. You're not, no one's perfect, but he's trying, I guess, doing a good job. He's
right. And especially when it's like when someone is totally in that conspiracy realm and they have all these ideas, man, you should not talk at all. You know what I mean? If you really want content, you can spice it up later and make whatever you want out of it. But let them talk. Let them follow their tangents.
I would have to put my hands over my mouth, or I don't know. I would have to do something for sure. But this guy does have some interesting contacts. I don't know how, But, you know, to have some Cobain contacts, to have this kind of contact, you know, he doesn't have Courtney contacts, it seems like. Maybe he's
Well,
got
this guy, what he said, I found you because I was researching. He said he was researching something and found this guy, and
Yeah.
and then he like reached out. You know, I'm not sure exactly what he was researching. I lost it. But I mean, he found him through that and just kind of reached out and like, yeah, let's talk. You know, let's do it.
He's kind of like a no stone left unturned. Like, I ran into you, so let's turn this over and see. Okay, let's go to the next. You know, I don't know.
Right. He's like, I was researching. He's basically a Spikebox is saying I was researching, doing this tangent, and he's like, oh, I found you in that process, and you know that's how we're talking now.
Yeah, exactly. And I like his name. The more you think about his channel, Spy Fox. I don't know. I like it. Okay.
More worldly.
Yeah, Tupac wanted to save young black males. He was on a mission to save young black males from all the oppression of the state, you know, really, you know, racism and other things and the ills of society. And but he ended up saying he really wanted to help, you know, all the disenfranchised, you know, peoples. And that's why he was beloved universally, even by like, I get, you know, messages from white people in, you know, Serbia and Croatia who said,
oh, really?
Yeah, saying they all loved Tupac. You know, they loved Tupac. He helped them keep going. They felt like he was their champion. And so the important thing about Tupac, though, is one of the important things is I mentioned, you know, he was a target of the counterintelligence program, and I would argue I show the evidence why he was also a target of Project MKUltra. And the reason is now they officially ended the counterintelligence program. That was an FBI program targeting leftists in general, but particularly brutally targeting black leftists. And that ended in 1971 only because anti-war activists broke into an FBI office, stole all the documents, and made them public. Okay. Now, M. Wesley Swearingen, who was a COINTELPRO agent in Los Angeles, said that they pretended to end the counterintelligence program, which shortened as COINTELPRO, but they really continued it under different names, at least until the mid-1990s when you know, Wes Swearingen came out with his memoir, published his memoir. I don't know what I just heard outside my window, but anyway, now Phil Agee was a CIA and a great activist, and he started a great magazine, Covert Action Magazine, which I've written a lot of articles for about Tupac, about Kurt Cobain, about drugs and all this stuff. But anyway, Phil Agee said that they did the same thing with MKUltra. They pretended to end it, and the CIA director shredded as many documents as he could. But there were still 10 or 20,000 documents. I'm sorry, maybe it was actually 20 or 30,000 documents left in the accounting department, and he didn't get to shred all of them.
I heard about this. I can't remember his name. He was a guest on Joe Rogan. He was talking about the whole Manson thing.
Tom O'Neill.
That the only documents he was able to find were accounting documents.
Yeah, they were all in the accounting department.
Just shredded most everything else.
Right. And so great researchers of MKUltra, such as I just forgot his name, who wrote the book Acid Dreams, Martin Lee, went through all these documents and said that the best estimates were that they were just 10% of the total. So if they found 20 or 30,000 documents, there's about 200,000 or 300,000 that were shredded, total that that were shredded or so. So nonetheless, the important thing is that Phil Agee and other whistleblowers say that they continued MKUltra under different names. So most researchers believe they continue it till today. And so in the 1990s, MKUltra was still happening. They were still using drugs for unconventional warfare. They were still manipulating musicians to try to get them to promote drugs. And when they, got sober and threatened to promote sobriety, like John Lennon did, like Tupac did right before he died, he was a witness at parties where everybody's drinking and smoking weed, and he didn't touch any alcohol or weed. He just danced the whole night, according to top rap producer Russell Simmons.
Closet.
They're threatening to promote sobriety at the end of their lives, and that's part.
That's interesting.
I don't know why, but it's just me. I felt like that Tupac was a major weed smoker.
Yeah. I mean,
He seemed like that kind of like
he's
deep
California
thinker.
made, you know, like he's
Yeah.
cool with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
And
He's saying he like homie's sober as fuck. I don't know. I don't believe that.
What, you don't believe that he was a weed smoker?
No, I don't believe that he was sober. I think he was I think he was he definitely, a lot of pictures I saw, he looked stoned as hell.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they consider that though. Like some people don't consider weed, you know, especially with a rapper.
Well, he was saying that he just said like he wasn't a drinker and he wasn't a pot smoker. And I always thought that he was a pot smoker for sure.
Me too. Yeah, I know what you're talking about with the when he was like your pictures you always see of him with the bandana, his eyes look bloodshot. Yeah.
Yeah, and then what's his name came out with the Chronic or whatever, freaking
Snoop Dogg or
was it, no, I think it was the mixer guy, the freaking
Dr. Dre, Biggie, I don't know.
Dr. Dre. So he came out with the Chronic, and so he was hanging out with them, and it was like Snoop Dogg, freaking Dr. Dre, like dude, they were smoking weed. I cannot be like, oh, not me. I'm gonna sit over here in the corner like Tupac's like going, not me. I just don't see it, man. That guy was smoking weed.
Maybe he wasn't at the beginning and he kind of stepped more into it, just like Kurt. Like he wasn't exactly hardcore at the beginning, but he kind of fell off into it, with Courtney or whoever. That's what he's saying is, these people were relatively clean and then they got smacked with this quick versus some other ones who they were already fucked up or, I don't know. Seems like they took advantage of these guys that were really smart. They definitely had the voice. They were, I think, maybe focused enough, whereas some of the other ones weren't. You're looking at Chris Cornell and Chester, both who are promoting sobriety, and they said they did not want someone who was promoting sobriety. You had Tupac and Kurt, neither one saying a damn word about sobriety. You had Lane Staley saying, fuck everything. I want to die. I'm not stopping. I don't care. I love heroin. I don't, whatever. And so you got Andy who went to rehab, but then he got, he decided to try one more time, got a hot shot, is dead. So they're different, but Chris Cornell and Chester both promoting sobriety, both with a huge audience. That is interesting. They did not want anyone around promoting sobriety. Fucked up, but I don't know. That came to mind.
Another reason, part of the many, some of the many reasons they were done away with. But with MKUltra still happening in the 1990s, you see Courtney Love's actions in a different light. You see that when she's replicating the MKUltra actions of Robert Lashbrook with bringing all the acid to musicians in the 1980s, and then doing the same and promoting all these drugs in the 1990s, and making big headlines about her heroin use. And even after Cobain dies, she's interviewed on Barbara Walters, and she talks about how acid can make you a genius at math, or cocaine can make you a genius at math, and acid could have made, her dad thought that acid could make her a genius. It's just bizarre comments, it's just really crazy comments like that. But she's promoting the drugs in the same way MKUltra is trying to promote the drugs to sideline to get youth to get involved in drugs, and it'll take them away from any kind of really positive activism.
Is it so? It's easier to control a population who's sort of dumbfounded and
exactly.
When your main goal every day is to get a drug, you're not thinking about making a change.
Right. And when you're doing acid, you're muddling your mind a bit, And now Karl Marx called it. It would be a religion says.
I'm going to say this. You look at back in the 60s or whatever, 70s, the whole Flower Child hippie protest stuff. And you've got the Grateful Dead, which had a huge, huge following. But they were also fucked up on acid. No one had any rhyme or reason other than just, we love the music. We love each other. Love, 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 and peace and love. Whatever message there was got so lost in the drugs. So
Right.
that's
I think
kind
they
of,
were more like kind of like focusing on just existing,
yeah,
then
togetherness, like
no future,
survival.
no past. You
Yeah.
know?
Live for the day. Yeah, definitely. But I'm just saying, like, those groups, they had huge reaches, but the acid had them so fucked up, they couldn't focus on any kind of message to pass along. Anyway, that's just a zip extra.
No, I mean, let me
Go ahead.
amphetamines too. I mean, they're like I had friends that believed some crazy shit, and they believe that things are happening that aren't happening. You know what I mean? Like when you talk to them, I kind of have this thing where it's like I can talk to someone that's hella fucked up and I wouldn't even know that they're like fucked up on whatever they're fucked up on because I just kind of accept people for who they are.
Yeah.
But I have been in conversations where like they were 100% believing in something that is so obviously insane that I just, I have to just walk away and go, I hope for you, you hope you like, find some way out of what this loop you're in.
Yeah. And, there are some people that have their convictions, and no matter what you say, you can lay it out for them in black and white. And I'm one of those people sometimes that passion overrides that black and white factual stuff. And I don't know. I don't know. It's almost like believing in a higher power. It's belief in something that is more than just fact, that's more than science. And it's that whole everyone has a different perspective on shit. I don't know.
That shows that opiates are religion of the masses. You can just turn them around. That's what the powers that be want to do. They want to make opiate the religion of the masses.
Wasn't it one of the founding fathers called religion mass hysteria or something? But we won't get into that. Right?
We're not going to talk about that. But,
Right.
but nonetheless, yeah, I mean, that's the new religion of youth. That's what the CIA tries to do. They try to control our hearts and minds. Yeah. And that's what one of the threats of these great musicians is they have the best ability, arguably, of anybody at influencing young adults' hearts and minds.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially some people who are considered poetic, like Lennon and Cobain, where you can interpret their lyrics the way you want to, and it makes you feel a certain way. Yeah,
right.
Totally get that. Can I back up for a second? What exactly was Operation Mockingbird?
So
does that have to do with the media?
Yeah, that was about media control by the CIA and U.S. intelligence.
And a lot of the wealthiest families were purchasing media outlets.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that, and that's why.
Yeah, okay.
But I'll tell you, I'll talk a little bit about it. There's a whole chapter. I have a whole chapter in, or two actually.
By the way, where can you can? I know you can purchase the book on Amazon. Is there any other place people can purchase your books?
Yeah, I mean, my books are available on Amazon. My new version of FBI War on Tupac book is available at lots of Barnes and Nobles.
Barnes and Noble. I give away Barnes and Noble gift cards.
That's great.
During live chats, so cool.
Great. And you can order Drugs as Weapons Against Us at most Barnes and Nobles and get it within a few days. But you can also get it from me if you want it. JohnPotash.com,
website.
DOTASH.com. It's got a few other different names like drugsasweapons.com and FBIWarOnTupac.com. So,
hey, I mentioned it in a couple different community posts, just to sort of hint around that you special guests coming up. I thought it was pretty obvious, but people knew, like they knew about your book and they were educating me.
Thanks. Great.
So I was like, okay, this is definitely a road worth going down.
Thanks for doing that, and thanks for telling
Absolutely.
me. Yeah, so it's these different musicians being targeted. It's just further evidence of each other's targeting, about some of the similar tactics used with John Lennon. I hate to say it. I didn't go down this road in depth in my book, but it came out in a recent recent biography by a journalist that was friends with John Lennon and Yoko Ono, he said Yoko Ono was first got John Lennon hooked on heroin. And that's another parallel between Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain.
She used to call herself Yoko.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this and Yoko Ono came from a family that was supposedly one of the aristocratic family in Japan, one of the top 5 banking families in Japan.
That's interesting. I always thought it was odd in the first place, like when you look back at like, old videos and shit of how she like came to be as just a thing,
Yep.
And she just like seemed creepy. It just seemed like she was kind of like, maybe like, I don't know, like that, like kind of a Courtney Lovey type that just saw the fame. Maybe when she came along, he went solo. Like she basically broke them up, right?
Right.
I mean, when I really reflect on it, man, maybe she was like the original Courtney.
I mean, the only other difference is that she was involved in the political message, whereas Courtney kind of didn't give a fuck. She had money sign bigger in her eyes. She was a little bit more Courtney. She was Yoko on speed. I don't know, but I can see why she would call herself that. And if you think about it, this is just me reaching, but the whole Thailand Japanese shipping connection when she was younger, it could be just like a little funny haha to that. Like, she is of Asian descent. This is where I've started hooking and getting my money, and I
don't see that connection, but I definitely like think about like she came out of nowhere. It seemed like maybe possibly that John Lennon was targeted by her. I mean, that makes total sense.
Yeah, and that Courtney targeted.
He could have anybody he wanted.
She wanted to be his Yoko. She wanted him to be John. That was his.
Yeah, I get how you're doing the relation, but I'm really focusing on Yoko Ono now. I'm like going, wow, it seemed odd at the time, like why he would choose her when he could have anybody on the planet, kind of. He was that famous.
Yeah.
That he could he had no lack of pussy, right?
But he chose her. She wasn't the most beautiful woman in the world, Just aesthetic.
Yeah. Can you when you replay? Can you go back a second?
I'll
like maybe 30 seconds. Yeah. Try.
So about some of the similar tactics used with John Lennon. I hate to say it. I didn't go down this road in depth in my book, but it came out in a recent a recent biography by a journalist that was friends with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. He said Yoko Ono was first got John Lennon hooked on heroin. And that's another parallel between Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain.
She used to call herself Yoko.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this and Yoko Ono came from a family that was supposedly one of the an aristocratic family in Japan, one of the top 5 banking families in Japan. And so
I did not know that.
Yeah. Now, if you look at Lennon's interviews, such as with Jan Wenner of the Rolling Stone, John Lennon tried to give up acid completely, and he did for about a year or two. Because he says it was just destroying his mind. He thought he was losing his mind on acid. And then 2 key people convinced him to use acid again. And one of them was his publicist, who was a publicist for a lot of suspicious people. And the other was Yoko Ono. And so again, you see the parallel there. And that's because they find the best evidence is that when people start doing acid, they're more easy to manipulate. That's what the research shows.
Wow.
So yeah,
it's a parallel with Hendrix too. He had a lady who would. I read that. I'm sorry. I'm sure you know her name. He would take her around the world with him because it was said that she could get drugs wherever they went.
Well, I haven't heard that about a particular partner of his, but I can definitely believe it. I know that whenever he went to parties, women, offered him tons of drugs, and I think
it was almost like a novelty to them. Like, let's give him acid. Let's give Jimmy acid.
Well, I think generally speaking, people were plants. There was plants in these people's lives.
Pause. That's what I was thinking. That's like all I could think about. There's something that I don't know. I feel like that's how our government works, with like the CIA, maybe even deeper than CIA, how MKUltra type shit, right?
Yeah.
They put people in groups and pretend that they're a part of that group, like 100%. Like that when they go in there, it's like, dude, sell it. You're 100% in there. No matter what you do, you can kill somebody. Just be a part of them, right?
Yeah. Have you ever seen
And then they instigate them in a direction, like these plants, right? And I mean, the plants don't have to be like from the government. It could be like from P. Diddy or whoever. I'm like, you could put some that, like, what's his name from freaking like actually was talking about this. I saw this about the Kardashians and what's his name that hooked up with I don't know. They all have K's. So what's the most popular one?
Courtney,
from Kim. So who is Kim's ex-husband recently?
Kanye.
Kanye. You know how like if you watch the Kardashians, you know how like that black guy came in and like started dating the mother.
Chloe.
No, the mother.
Oh, Chris.
Like Chris. So that black guy kind of came in like maybe.
Good night, Stiggy. Love you too.
Good night. Thanks for hanging out. And if you can, hit that subscribe. But I mean, he is like 100% that guy's a plant. He made it clear, like freaking, like he's like, dude, he's CIA. So he's thinking, and that guy has all these connections to P. Diddy, Puff Daddy.
And they're in organized crime. I mean, with gangs.
I don't know, man. It's super weird, but I mean, like it's well known that that he was calling out that dude as like that guy's is a plant. He's a CIA. He's for 100% CIA, and like now that we're divorced or whatever, like my children are in that, like around that environment and shit. Weird shit.
To me, like you got Tupac more on the gangster mind influence. I don't know. We've got to eliminate somebody, whatever scene. And with Courtney and Yoko, you've got Courtney, even though her family wasn't rich, she found a rich Jap or whatever tycoon that was in Thailand or Japan or wherever.
Right.
And Yoko's family was already rich in Japan for the biggest bank or something. They said biggest banking franchise.
Right. So I also want to like have you go back. When you restart, definitely go back a minute because there's something happening right there in that conversation.
Okay. Let's see how far you wants to go back. I hope I didn't just screw up. Please tell me no. Okay.
And I think about some of the similar tactics used with John Lennon.
You want it there or further?
Yeah, sounds good.
I hate to say it. I don't even want to. I didn't go down this road in depth in my book, but it came out in a recent recent biography by a journalist that was friends with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. He said Yoko Ono first got John Lennon hooked on heroin. And that's another parallel between Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain.
She used to call herself Yoko.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this and Yoko Ono came from a family that was supposedly one of the an aristocratic family in Japan, one of the top 5 banking families in Japan. And so
I did not know that.
Yeah. Now, if you look at Lennon's interviews, like such as with Jan Wenner of the Rolling Stone, John Lennon tried to give up acid completely, and he did for about a year or two. And because he says it was just destroying his mind, he thought he was losing his mind on acid. And then 2 key people convinced him to use acid again. And one of them was his publicist, who was a publicist for a lot of suspicious people. And the other was Yoko Ono. And so again, you see the parallel there, and that's because they find the best evidence is that when people start doing acid, they're more easy to manipulate. That's what the research shows.
Wow.
So yeah,
it's a parallel with Hendrix too. He had a lady who would. I read that. I'm sorry. I'm sure you know her name.
Fine.
He would take her around the world with him because it was said that she could get drugs wherever they went.
Well, I haven't heard that about a particular partner of his, but I can definitely believe it. I know that whenever he went to parties, women, offered him tons of drugs, and I think
it was almost like like a novelty to them. Like, let's give him acid. Let's give Jimmy acid.
Well, I think generally speaking, people were plants. There was plants in these people's lives. With Lennon, the publicist was a plant. He was, the best evidence I think is that he was working for intelligence because the people he represented all had intelligence connections. This one plant. With Lennon, with Jimi Hendrix, what you find is that he couldn't handle his instant fame in England. He first got big in England. He didn't get big in the United States at first.
Playing with Clapton.
Because of racism. But when he went to England, people like Clapton and the Rolling Stones just immediately recognized his genius. And they were much less racist over there. So he became an instant star over there.
Well, no, they were modeling their music off of Black American musicians.
True. And so he couldn't handle that instant stardom because it was just he just was being asked to do so many huge shows so fast. And into his life comes this guy Michael Jeffrey. And Michael Jeffrey. And Michael Jeffrey admitted being a former MI6 agent, which is British CIA.
Wow.
Now, all the best evidence shows that he continued to work for MI6 undercover. And so
while he's managing Hendrix?
While he's managing, Jimi Hendrix, yeah.
Wow.
And so Jimi Hendrix's fiancée, Monica Danneman, said that Jimi Hendrix, got when he was doing anti-war benefit, Michael Jeffrey kept not letting him do anti-war benefits. He finally got to do an anti-war benefit. And right before the benefit, someone spiked his drink with a large amount of psychedelics. And he felt like it hurt his guitar playing because he had stopped using psychedelics for a long while. And he wasn't used to that huge amount of psychedelics, and it messed him up. And so he stopped his anti-war benefit.
They were actually trying to stop his act.
Yeah. And so he also said that somebody planted hard drugs on him in his luggage at an airport and got him arrested. And he says he thought it was Mike Jeffrey that did it both times, with the acid and with the hard drugs. And so, he was really trying to get away from Mike Jeffrey. He was really, trying to get rid of him. He finally fires Mike Jeffrey.
Wait. Would he plant the drugs on him so he could then get him out of trouble?
Yeah, he'd get him in trouble and
wow.
then him out,
like
get him out of jail.
You need me because I can get you out of trouble.
Exactly.
I'm your savior, bitch.
So best evidence is they also had a mafia group kidnap Hendrix for several days. And this is in the best, biography of Jimi Hendrix called Electric Gypsy by two professors. And so then he says, Mike Jeffrey claims he had a bigger mafia group free him. And so this is all intimidation tactics to not have, because Jimi Hendrix was constantly trying to get out of his contract with Jeffrey and to fire Jeffrey. And finally, Jimi Hendrix fires Jeffrey. And within 48 hours, he's dead. Okay. And
wow. Triple wow.
Because within about a week and a half of him firing the real owner of Death Row Records, this guy named Dave Kenner, this lawyer, is like underground.
Some white dude.
Yeah, this mob lawyer. This mob lawyer is the real owner of Death Row Records. And,
really?
Yeah, and he was supposed to be Tupac's lawyer, and Tupac fired him, and within about 9 days of firing him, Tupac was dead. And so that's some of the parallels between those guys. But again, it was, there was a lot of that. They were trying to, Mike Jeffrey was trying to manipulate Hendrix to promote drugs. And then when Hendrix got away from drugs, it was just, doing mild drugs, maybe drinking a little bit or smoking a little bit of weed. That was it, not using any other drugs. He was getting into activism, Jimi Hendrix, and he was dedicating his last album to the Black Panthers. He talked about the Black Panthers in interviews, and the FBI had him under 24-hour surveillance. And according to their some of their documents, they were watching.
Are those files now public?
Well, the files aren't public, but a few of the FBI documents have made it out, and
So it tells you right there, just the fact that they have a file on him.
Yeah.
Tells you that he's of interest. The FBI would not just waste their time.
Serious interest, yeah.
Right. Serious interest.
Yeah, because some of the biographies I read, talked about he had him under regular surveillance, and so and there's more to that. But again, this is the way U.S. intelligence, focused on musicians and how seriously they took these musicians.
Do you ever get a little intimidated or scared talking about these subjects?
I do, yeah, and I've been messed with, but again, I'm lucky that the fact that they censor me so much already, there's only so much audience I can reach, and I think they manipulate some of the people that are connected to some of these guys to try to smear me, try to badmouth me. But look, I just do my best at presenting a clear message, and hopefully the people that hear me, just understand that this is all, heavily investigated and good, well and noted and researched, and
right. These aren't things you just came up with. This is years and years of research.
Right. I mean, they'll talk about it as wild conspiracy theories, but when you look at the people saying what I said they said in my film, they're very credible people, very credible sources.
Right. Hey, I totally get it. I mean,
thanks.
But the thing is, the people who get it, and I've had a lot of people, just my little YouTube channel, comment and say, I used to think this is crazy, da 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 da. I think if you just keep doing what you're doing, the more and more people are going to read it and be like, hey, this guy's onto something,
Yeah, thanks, Charlie.
In towns all across the country.
All right, that's it.
That was interesting.
So he thinks he's on this thing.
Well, it's hard to prove. Yeah. You'd have to have what do you call it? You need whistleblowers.
And you're going way back with Jimi Hendrix,
Oh yeah, that's way back shit.
And as far as his death, it's strange, but it's not unheard of. It's, if nothing else, a warning to the youth that came after. Flip over on your side or your stomach if you're drinking and you're going to pass out. Whatever. Like there's so many conspiracies that have nothing to do with like this right here, that have to do with every musician's death. Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison. Like, one thing I was thinking about, how when you hear Kurt Cobain's name, you almost always hear Kurt and Courtney. Like, she sold them as a package. She wanted to make sure she was in there to where, like, literally you almost never hear him mentioned without her somehow. And it's kind of like the whole, like, Elvis, Priscilla. Like, yeah, you have the woman, but, like, it's almost always so publicized that the woman's name gets put in there. And not Priscilla Presley. She was more of, like, the, I guess, doormat type versus Courtney. But, like, and also Pam, Jim and Pam. You hear, or I did hear that. And you've got a weird circumstance there with him in Paris, a foreign place where he's counting on strangers to get his drugs for him. Who does he know if these strangers aren't plants? There's CIA mentioned with Jim Morrison's death as well.
Oh yeah, he had a lot of conflicts with government.
That's a big. That's something I have studied a lot. And I don't know. I just think it's interesting when you think about the whole, like, she made herself such a big part of his life that you almost always hear her name with his.
Yeah.
Kurt and Courtney. I mean,
I mean, that's the whole thing. When I think about like everything we just heard, I kind of reflect on like how much the government wants to control the narrative, right?
Yeah.
And if
They're willing
someone
to
is,
pay plants, they're
if
willing
they
to.
can't predict what your next album's going to be, what your next popular song's going to be, if you can influence people, if they can find some way to influence, think about when they talk about plants, right? Where, if they're going to plant something in your environment, who would they plant to be the most influential, the most, the person that could like change your mind type things? It would be a manager. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when we were talking about like, I don't know, he was talking about, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what rock star he was talking about, but I mean, there was like, like a Svengali kind of, person there, like going, do acid, like freaking, like do more drugs.
It'll make you more creative. Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, I don't know. It's just,
It'll keep you going on stage.
I don't put it past it,
I know people encourage Jim because, he was the shy poet. He didn't realize that he was the attraction. So, you heard the whole thing about him singing with his back toward the crowd because.
Yeah, that was the movie.
Yeah, but I mean, like you hear it even in the book and stuff.
Great movie.
So once he started doing drugs, it was like he turned around. He fucking turned around quick, and he was.
Well, I feel like he was doing drugs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Once he started, like, really, I guess, upping it, moving into acid. Even he was saying while he was walking along the beach, like in the movie where he meets up with them and forms the whole band, is like he had been tripping and coming up with Moonlight Drive and just sleeping on the beach. And
great song.
whatever. Like, he just, I think he turned the drugs up because he needed that self-esteem boost. And I don't know why. He didn't need a glow up. He was already hot. Like, I don't know. That's just me. But I think he was definitely a possible, you even hear back about Elvis, but you know what? Forget that. Like, let's go back.
Well, no, actually, that's a great point because I actually thought about Elvis quite a bit in that conversation.
And then you've got Charles Manson, who, I could talk about.
No, I want to stick with Elvis for a second.
Yeah, it's a legit thing. And you got his dad who's military and her dad who's military.
And, what was the guy's name that was managing him? Was called the General or something? The Colonel.
Colonel Parker.
Right. And he was making this kind of pushing him in this like this pancakey kind of, same shit, different day type shit. And I when we first talked about this, I was like, the reason why I don't dig Elvis as much as I probably would was I felt like he was kind of like the Monkees version of, how they were like manufacturing his direction. It wasn't like he was like personally like involved. It was like, this is, here are the lyrics. Here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah,
I felt like that's
you're gonna be in. You're gonna be filming for the next 6 months. Go live with it.
Oh yeah, you're like a slave, bitch.
And you see
get to work.
If you've seen the movie Priscilla recently, you'll see that in the movie that is shown through and through. Like, he's so frustrated that he is being pulled in all these directions, and then he's like, well, I might as well make the most of it. And that's where you hear about the hookups with the movie starlets and whatever, because he's been shoved in these projects for 6 months at a time away from home. And I mean, they're literally putting him in movies that he wants to gag like it's nothing like he ever dreamed or wanted, but he's just following what the crowd wants, not what he wants, what the crowd wants. He hasn't gotten to the point yet where he can say, screw it, I'm going to do an album for me, and we see that.
Right.
We see like,
it's like, what would that take? Like at that point when everything's like kind of like the snowball's been like going down and growing and growing and growing. It's like, how do you like stop and like do something different?
Yeah.
When friggin' like like we were talking about, like actually been like discussed, like all the hang-oners, all these people that are involved with you and wanting something from you. They're, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, your entourage. I mean, Elvis kind of was the beginning of that with his
Oh,
TCB
yeah.
rings and his guys. You know, they all had the rings, and they all,
Everyone was relying on his success and his, I mean, like if he stopped, they stopped.
Yep, 100%. I mean, there's so much there to unpack. I mean, you can look at that. You can look at Manson. You can look at all of these people we're talking about. For as long as there have been influential political people or music or movie or whatever, there's been some type of corruption. There's been probably some type of plants. There's been something going on. It's just interesting that just now people are stopping and going back and like, wait a minute. What about, I wonder, those things. And that's where you can talk for days and days and get, off on some crazy topic. And I could see, honestly, in my fairy tale world where I sit down in my head having a conversation with Kurt Cobain, I could see me and him like getting off on a topic like this versus, just like, I'm so fucking high, man. What about you? I can so see him wanting to sit down and have like a legit, even if he was high, like a philosophical conversation, like what
Yeah. Let's like kick it right here around the campfire. Let's look up at the stars and let's talk about like freaking like the universe,
Yeah. And I don't see her like that. I see her like dragging his arm to the next.
Her who?
Courtney. Courtney. Oh my God.
Yeah. Courtney. Yeah. That actually, I've never heard that one before, but it's really good.
Yeah. Like dragging his arm, like, no, you've got to come meet this guy, like this producer, I mean, I just see her dragging him away from any, whether it's a female
peace.
Or not.
Yeah. It's like no peace. Chaos.
And you know what? Maybe he used more drugs. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm that kind of person. I identify with him, and maybe that's why I'm not as drawn to him, because I am drawn to opposites. Like Andy, loud, in your face. Everyone loved him. Totally opposite from me. And so I'm drawn, I guess, other than Lane, me and him are similar introverts. But like Kurt, I can get with him on the intellectual, on the quieter. I want to kind of keep off to myself. I love my music, my message, whatever. Don't fuck with that. But she was wanting to take this person who liked being off by himself or just to one or two close friends and just throwing him in the party scene. And he wasn't comfortable. He said many occasions he was not comfortable with that.
He looked uncomfortable a lot. A lot of photos you see of him, right? He's like doing like a hard grin type of thing where you can see that I don't know how to feel. I mean, I'm doing this like as a goof, like he's being goofy. But I feel like he was actually saying, like, I don't know exactly what you want from me right now. Like, where I'm just being like freaking like extreme, in the photos.
I mean, I've been in a situation where, unfortunately, I've never been able to really like get drunk since a young age. I was able to, but not as an adult. But I could see where people that do get, some type of something off of alcohol, where in a social situation, you might grab a few extras off the damn tray because your girlfriend is just bombarding you with fucking, here, you got to meet this person and this person, not even to make him famous or bigger, but to get her out there. Like, talk about me, I don't know, talk about us.
She was like in that unga bunga networking type of environment, where it wasn't like
a commodity, and she was a part of the package. That's just, I don't know. And it makes it sad because he was about more than that. Sorry, there's my passion coming out. He was about more than that. Like, he was my best friend, I can tell you. I don't know. Sometimes I do feel a connection with these people, even though I never fucking met them. I don't know. I don't know. Especially when we talk about her, when we talk about some of these wives, not all of them. Like I told you, Xana, she's on here. Like she's one of those loyal to the bitter end people, even though she has a family now, whatever. Like, she made it clear to them, like, I'm always going to go by and check on that mural. I'm always going to talk about Andy. whatever. Like, he's a huge part of my life. But she didn't steal or try to even steal, even when he died, anything from him. She just loved him. And that's big
Who's
respect.
Andy? Who's Andy?
Andy Wood from Mother Love Bone, my favorite out of the three. I don't feel like we've talked about him enough for you to know who he is, and we should.
So, do you think that maybe American Spy Fox has done him before? Go to Google search and let's see if he's talked about him.
If so, he's talked about him in conjunction with Chris Cornell because they were roommates. He sadly only gets brief mentions and things because of that, and because he died right before everything took off. Like, he was the one they said would be the bridge from glam hair metal to grunge, and he died right before that happened. And his bandmates actually went over and joined Pearl Jam. So there's alleged that they got some of the songs that he wrote and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I'm looking it up right now upon direction here. Andy Wood. Let's see. I'm saying if he has anything, I would be kind of shocked unless it's an interview with Chris Cornell. I've never seen that. No, nothing. The only thing that even came up is something I'm like, what? It's Nirvana, the story of the Silver music video. And I have no idea what that is. The Silver music video, hidden meaning.
No, Sliver.
Sliver? Oh, sorry. I got some whatever. I wanted it to be Silver. Susan Silver, I guess. I don't know. Sliver.
All right. Let's play that. You want to do that real quick?
Wait, you got to tell me, what is it? It's a song.
Sliver's a song.
I've never heard it. Or if I did, I don't remember.
Anyway, your title says we're talking about Courtney Love, Kurt Cobain, MKUltra, and conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it's in there.
So let's cap it with this one.
I hope that it mentions Andy. I don't know. I want to spread the word about him more. He died before.
Grab your guitar, get musician, and let's play. Check 1 2, check. Check 1 2. Check 1 2, check. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the American Spy Fox. Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be talking about Nirvana's Sliver music video. Did you
This
know
was 1 month
there
ago.
is an entire story behind this music video? It involves Dave Grohl appearing on the scene, Chad Channing leaving the scene, Danny Peters believing he was going to be Nirvana's next drummer, Danny Peters of Mudhoney.
Oh, good story.
A can of sausage, specifically this Prairie Belt can of sausage that Kurt is holding in a Sounds Weekly interview. As usual, in order for me
You can
to make
still
all
get that
this
here.
connect the dots and make sense to you, we're going to start from the beginning and we're going to tell a story in chronological order. First off, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that Kurt named the song Sliver because he thought that music journalists of the time would call the song Silver. And he was right. Sort of his little way.
I was going to call it that. I'm a journalist.
He called you out, mermaid.
Video, and they called Sliver.
Got me.
So it worked. However, our story begins way back in 1990. The summer of 1990, Chad Channing is complaining to his bandmates, Chris Novoselic and Kurt Cobain. He wants to contribute to their music catalog. He has songs that he's written. He wants to write lyrics. He wants to help out on guitar. He wants them to play songs that he has written. Nirvana has achieved some major underground success, and they're starting to be noticed, and they've got a whole new crop of songs that they've demoed. You know what I'm talking about. Those songs would end up on Nevermind. Kurt and Chris are quite satisfied with the music. Chad is not. Chad feels as though his creativity is being ignored. At the same time, these major record labels are sending A&R representatives to meet Kurt and Chris and Chad and inviting them to fancy dinners in New York and LA. And Kurt and Chris, they're aware that, hey, we're about to break into the big time. It's coming. It might not be this week. It might not be this month. It might not be this year, but it's coming. And they start to feel like Chad Channing's drumming is not up to par with a major record label band. They encourage Chad, and this is one little minute point that hardly anyone ever talks about, if ever. Chris and Kurt did not immediately just say, Chad, you're out of the band. We're going to get a better drummer. Chad did not immediately say, well, you're not going to let me be creative in this process. We're not going to use my song, so I quit. It didn't go like that. Kurt and Chris encouraged Chad to take professional drum lessons. They did not want to get rid of Chad. They wanted to give him a chance. They said, dude, get some professional lessons, get better at drums, and then you'll be up to par with what we're doing. We won't have to get rid of you. Chad, in his pride, I'm a drummer. If somebody told me to get professional lessons, I totally get it. When you're a DIY kind of person, you're self-taught, you're very proud of what you've taught yourself. If someone said, dude, you need some lessons, yeah, I get it. Chad's pride was hurt. He refused to get the lessons. This is why they start to look for a new drummer. So at the same time that Chad is upset, his creativity is being ignored, Kurt and Chris believe that his drumming is not up to par. They also asked Chad to rehearse more with the band. Chad lived on Bainbridge Island. Chris is in Tacoma. Kurt's in Olympia at this time. They're all far apart. It takes some time for them to get together. They need someone who's closer, who's willing to rehearse more often. So when it comes to Chad Channing eventually being booted out of the band, it was really Chad's fault. Had he just done what Kurt and Chris asked him to do, we probably would have never met Dave Grohl. The last straw was Chad refusing to get lessons and refusing to rehearse more often. That's when they said, gotta let you go. College radio stations and the insiders of the music industry who know what they're going to put out in the future, they all want Nirvana. With A&R representatives from major record labels calling for courtship on Kurt and Chris, they just decided we got to get a better drummer. If our drummer isn't going to make himself better, then we just need to get a better one. Now, whether it was mutual or whether Chad was fired, we'll never know, but from my research, it seems like they let him go. To sort of save face, Chad was like, well, you know what? I was frustrated anyway. Maybe this is for the best. And they go their separate ways. We come to July 11th, 1990. Danny Peters, formerly of Mudhoney and later the Screaming Trees, and then even later back to Mudhoney, would fill in for Chad. On July 11th, 1990, Kurt, Chris, and Danny Peters would go and record the song Sliver, which would later appear on Nirvana's third album, Incesticide. The recording that you hear on the Incesticide album is not Dave Grohl. It is Danny Peters. Oddly, and just to throw this in there, did you know that it's now thought that the guy just crashing the cymbal and the bass for Polly on Nevermind is actually Chad Channing? They got Dave and Chad's recordings mixed up, and they don't know which one is on the Nevermind album. One more reason why I believe that Chad should have been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, along with Nirvana, but you know how they are. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame never ceases to make somebody mad. Like and comment if you think Chad Channing should have been in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Dave and Kurt and the rest of them. Anyway, I digress. We're getting off topic. Danny Peters would continue to rehearse with Nirvana all the way up until September of 1990. He's been in the band for 3 months. He even recorded a song with them, Sliver, and he feels as though I'm next. I'm
Sliver.
Nirvana drummer. On September 22nd
Yeah,
of
that's gonna haunt me
1990,
now.
Danny Peters would play a live show with Kurt and Chris at the Motorsports Garage. This is now known as a very iconic show. It was sort of one of those shows that just proved to everyone how powerful this music was going to be. People went ape at this show. Very ape. The next day, after the Motorsports Garage show on September 23rd, Danny Peters is featured in an interview with Nirvana as Nirvana's drummer in Sounds Weekly. Sounds Weekly was a UK thing. It was a weekly music publication that talked about the new and upcoming bands, the biggest things going on. Kurt was very proud to make it into Sounds Weekly. He even, for quite some time, wore a Sounds t-shirt, which you can see, and I think he wore it at the Reading Festival and various interviews and photo shoots. The Sounds Weekly photo shoot interview happened at Chris and Shelly Novoselic's house during a barbecue on September 23rd, 1990. Now, Chris and Shelly would later become vegetarians, but at this point in time, they're still eating meat. You see Danny here in the photo shoot, and oh, who's this guy in the background? Well, this is weird. This is kind of awkward. That's Dave Grohl. What Danny Peters did not know is Kurt and Chris had flown in another drummer one day before the Motorsports Garage show. On September 21st, Dave Grohl arrived. The very next day, Nirvana has a show with Danny Peters. The very next day after that, they do an interview with Danny Peters as their drummer. And here's Dave in the background, minding his own business, da-da-da-da-da. Had to be weird for him, right? At this point, on September 23rd, during the Sounds Weekly photo shoot, 2 days after Dave Grohl's arrival, he's just a guest. He's just hanging out. They're just trying to see if they can get along with this guy and if he's cool enough for them to want to tour with. They have not even auditioned him yet. They haven't jammed yet. Danny's still the guy. He's on deck, as you'd say in baseball. No one knows what he can do yet. He's in the batting cage. He knows what he can do. And it had to have been awkward for him, right? Because he knew, like, oh my God, like, this guy's doing a photo shoot. I'm literally pictured in the background just hanging out, and I'm probably going to replace him. That had to be strange, right? They had not had time. They had the show, they had the interview and the barbecue the next day. Danny has no clue that this dude who's hanging out in the background is there to take his place. If they like him, if he fits in, if he's better than Danny. Dave Grohl actually went to the Motorsports Garage show as a guest of Chris and Shelly. When he first arrived, he did not stay with Kurt. He stayed with Chris and Shelly for the first month. And although he was a guest of the band, he chose to hang out in the crowd because his favorite underground band, the Melvins, were playing. So Dave's in the crowd at the Nirvana show, watching the Melvins, watching Nirvana as an onlooker, as a spectator, as a fan. Now, personally, as a drummer, if I'm Dave Grohl, I've been invited to audition for a band and I have the luck, the chance to watch another drummer playing with them, I'm going to be taking notes. I'm going to be writing down, what does this drummer do well? What does he not do so well? What can I do to improve their songs? So Dave's in the crowd watching and he's taking notes. And he did have the cassette tape Bleach, so he knew the songs very well. He had come prepared. He took the Bleach cassette tape, he learned all the songs, he practiced them. So once he comes to Washington, he's ready to go. Then he gets the chance to see the drummer, the other drummer that may be replacing Chad Channing, and sort of size him up. By the end of the show, Dave is very confident. I think I can do a better job than that guy. At that time, Dave Grohl says of the cassette tape Bleach, you look at the cover of Bleach and you just think that they're these big burly lager drinking guys. They look kind of nasty on the front, almost like a metal band, but with this retarded weirdness about them. Dave thought that Nirvana's Bleach sounded a bit like the Melvins, and that was okay with him because, like I said before, the Melvins was Dave's favorite band at this time. So he was quite okay with Nirvana having that Melvins-esque sound. But boy, was he in for a big surprise because Kurt Cobain was about to pull some songs out of his hat that were nothing like Bleach. Later, when Michael Azerrad would interview Dave for the Come As You Are book, Dave would say of that show, they didn't completely blow me away or anything. The Melvins played before them, and I was so into the Melvins that I was spent by the time Nirvana came on.
Dave would also talk about that motor sports show to Michael Azerrad, and he would admit that he was in fact analyzing Danny Peters' drumming, and this is what he had to say about it. He's an incredible drummer, Dave said, but I didn't think Nirvana sounded quite right with Peters. He didn't quite fit. It was like a man wearing a very nice hat that nevertheless didn't go with his suit. Dave, quiet, cool, calculating, confident as ever that he would in fact soon be replacing Peters, closely stood by the next day after the show during a Sounds Weekly interview and photo shoot. Again, Kurt and Chris had not yet had the time to audition Dave, so he's just hanging out, and they're all not saying anything to Peters, who believes he's Nirvana's drummer. So Peters would be featured in the article as Nirvana's drummer. We see Dave hanging out in the background. He's not even bothering to look at the camera because he's probably feeling kind of awkward. He may have even been feeling a little bad. Like, man, I'm just going to let this guy have the time of his life as Nirvana's drummer right now because I know I'm going to be taking it real soon. Keep in mind, he doesn't know Kurt and Chris. He doesn't know how they feel about him. He's a guest at this point. He's not a friend. Peters is a well-known confidant. Dave's just a guest, so he's being humble. He's staying in the background. When do you think they're going to audition Dave? That would come afterward, a couple days afterward. I would bet my bottom dollar that as this photo was being taken, Dave Grohl was thinking, you will all know who I am very, very soon. Keep in mind, Dave even said the Melvins went before Nirvana. That means the Melvins opened up for Nirvana. That's how big Nirvana was getting even that early on. This transition of popularity must have happened very quickly because you see the Melvins is at the top of the flyer. The flyer was made with the Melvins being the closing act, Nirvana, the Dwarves, the Derelicts being the opening act.
They are further supporting my theory that Daves are very smart, but can also be very cocky.
Typically, your closing act is going to be at the very top. Somewhere in between this flyer being made and the actual show, Nirvana gained more popularity than the Melvins because they flip-flopped. And the Melvins opened for Nirvana. I know that had to be a bit, and I'm not talking crap or nothing like that, but I know that Dale Covert and Buzz Osborne had to be at least a little upset that Kurt Cobain, the student, had become Kurt Cobain, the master. And reading about this Sounds photo shoot interview is when I seen this damned can of sausage. I've seen this picture 100 times. Why is Kurt Cobain holding this? It's so weird. Like, who just holds a can of sausage, right? What is it about this imagery that Kurt liked it so much that this can of sausage would pop up again 2 years later in the Sliver music video? Keep in mind, Danny Peters recorded the Sliver song July 11th, 1990 with Kurt and Chris. The music video was not made until 2 years later, March of 1992. Why did Kurt Cobain hang on to this can of sausage? Kurt Cobain was a very creative, artsy guy. If you're a hardcore fan, you know that he liked to write nonfiction stories and narrate them. You know that he liked to paint and draw. He was a sculptor. He did all kinds of things with imagery. And sometimes he would just really like objects. It was quirky, it was odd, but sometimes he would sort of fall in love with objects, dolls and collages and just all kinds of weird objects that he would keep around him. And this can of sausage is going to pop up again later in the story. So let us continue. A few days after the photo shoot, Kurt and Chris finally have the time to audition Dave, and they do this at a place called The Dutchman. Chris Novoselic would say this about Dave's audition at The Dutchman. We knew within 2 minutes that he was the right drummer, says Chris. He was a hard hitter. He was really dynamic. He was so bright, so hot, so vital. He rocked. So immediately, they knew that Dave was the right guy. And now comes something that Kurt and Chris loathed. They hated this. They disdained it. Someone had to tell Danny Peters, oh, and by the way, he was booked for a European tour coming up with Nirvana. Someone had to tell Danny Peters he's out of the band. Kurt and Chris were not good at giving someone bad news. They knew it would hurt their feelings, keeping in mind that Danny Peters is their friend and drummed for a band they admired, Mudhoney. They really didn't want to tell this guy that you're not Nirvana's drummer, and we gotta let you go. Remember that guy that was hanging out with us at the barbecue, and then Sounds Weekly came and interviewed us, and we introduced you as Nirvana's drummer? Well, actually, that guy in the background, we auditioned him, and he's better than you. So, sorry. Yeah, they weren't going to do that, so this is what happened.
Hey kids, got a special treat for you today. Kurt Cobain's here. You know, Kurt Cobain from Aberdeen. What's going on, baby? Not a damn thing. I should. How are you? I'm sorry to ask you that. Not really. Well, I was fine. I was just hanging out here on the Boy Meets Girl show, and he called up and said, I want to play some songs. So I said, this is rockin' good news. Bloody brilliant.
Kurt, who hated any confrontation that would result in a friend's feelings being hurt, tried to avoid the conversation by announcing on Calvin Johnson's Chaos Radio in Olympia that they had a new drummer, and that new drummer's name was not Danny Peters, it was David Grohl. Calvin Johnson, owner of K Records. A lot of people listened to Johnson's radio station. Unfortunately, I could not find the entire interview, but part of the interview is on YouTube. If you'd like to listen, Kurt plays Opinion, Lithium, I believe Gum, and maybe one other song, that September 25th, 1990 Calvin Johnson interview. So Kurt was hoping someone would hear this and tell Danny, or maybe Danny would listen to it, and then they wouldn't have to have that odd face-to-face conversation. Interestingly, Kurt thought so highly of Dave's drumming that he compared him to Dale Crover during that September 1990 interview. He said, he's a baby Dale Crover. He plays almost as good as Dale. And within a few years' practice, he may even give Dale a run for his money. Later, in another interview, Kurt would say this about Dave Grohl. He's the most well-adjusted boy I've ever met. He's totally easy to get along with. Everyone loves him. He plays drums better than anyone I've ever heard. I mean, he blows away John Bonham. Kurt even acknowledged the awkward situation with Peters. Of Peters, Kurt would say, he's such a beautiful drummer, but we can't pass up the opportunity to play with the drummer of our dreams. He's been the drummer of our dreams for like 2 years, said Kurt. Kurt and Chris had watched Dave play with his former band Scream, who'd been on the same bill as Buzz and Dale's Melvins. They'd mentioned to Buzz how impressed they were with Dave's drumming. They even stated to Buzz, quote, if we only had a drummer like that. So it wasn't necessarily that they were saying Dave Grohl was the drummer of their dreams. They were saying a drummer like that. Little did they know, they would end up with that exact drummer. Buzz, who was always networking with other musicians, took mental note of this. And you all know the story. When Scream ended up falling apart, Buzz would call Kurt and Chris and say, I can contact Dave, I can get him up here. You guys said you were impressed with him. You told me once that if you only had a drummer like that, well, here's your opportunity. And that brings Dave right up to this situation with Danny Peters. Dave was stranded without money, without a band. Although if you watch this video about that time period, you'll find out that it wasn't that bad for Dave. Sure, he wasn't doing what he would love, but he wasn't exactly in a bad situation either. However, I digress. Back to the story. Kurt had hoped to avoid this disappointing conversation with Danny Peters. He just wasn't that good at telling people, just being assertive. He just wasn't that good at it. Even in an MTV interview after In Utero dropped and in Michael Azaret's book, The Story of Nirvana, Dave and Kurt and Chris talk about how passive aggressive they are. And they say, we just bitch about each other behind each other's backs. They're not good at just being assertive and saying what they mean what you say and say what you mean, right? So Kurt is hoping that Danny will just hear the radio broadcast, or someone who knows Danny will hear the radio broadcast where they announce Dave, and then he won't have to tell Danny, you're done, right? The only problem was, this is pre-internet. If you don't catch a live broadcast, you don't get to hear it. There is no going back and replaying it, right? Danny doesn't hear the broadcast. Certain people around them hear the broadcast, but they don't want to be the one to tell Danny. They know that he's psyched about the European tour he's supposed to be going on with Nirvana. So no one tells Danny. In the end, Kurt would have to call Danny and tell him directly. Kurt called me up, says Peters. He said, Nirvana's going to go with Geffen. And I'm like, cool. So I say, what about this tour? But then Kurt gets a little quiet and he starts to mumble, well, we got another drummer. Now, Peters claims, and I quote, I wasn't bummed at all. I kind of half-ass expected it. I'm still not bummed. Now, much later, Danny Peters would admit, yes, I was very bummed. He was mainly bummed that he never got the drum on Nevermind. He said it was such a powerful album, obviously an album that will go down in history as one of the best, and he actually was bummed that he didn't get the drum to all these new songs that Kurt was pulling out of his hat. Anyone would have been bummed. It would have been terrible news. Now, as fate would have it, Mudhoney would get back together. Danny Peters would drum for the Screaming Trees for a period of time. This guy had a career all his own, in his own right, one that people could be jealous of. It's not as if Danny just disappeared from rock and roll. He ended up having a great career himself. And it's worth noting that the group remained friends to this day. Aside from an illustrious drumming career, little known fact about Danny Peters, he had a small role in a Chris Farley film called Black Sheep. Do you guys remember Chris Farley, David Spade, Tommy Boy, Black Sheep, those 90s movies? Go back, watch it again, and see if you can spot Danny Peters alongside David Spade and Chris Farley. Back to the can of sausage. What's this all about? How does it tie into our story? To answer that question, we need to fast forward 2 years. Nirvana had released their third album, Incesticide, only 3 months earlier in December of 1992. Come March of 1993, 2 years after that Sounds Weekly photo shoot with the can of sausage and Danny Peters as the drummer, they decide to make a music video for the song Sliver. Very little to no marketing was ever done for Incesticide. Matter of fact, I can only find one interview where Kurt is even asked about the album. Now, in Michael Azarret's book, they basically say, you know what, we were so hot at the time, we just decided to take the B-sides, put them on the shelves, let the fans find it themselves. Boy, did fans find it themselves. Despite a lack of any promotion, Incesticide would reach number 51 on the Billboard 200 and sold 500,000 copies within the first 2 weeks. That's a gold record right there, without even promoting it, without even mentioning that it exists. This is how hardcore Nirvana fans were after the release of Nevermind. It was a very merry Nirvana Christmas that year of 1992 for my stepbrother and I. I remember it vividly because it's the only Christmas in my childhood where I actually got something I wanted. And what I received was a Nintendo Entertainment System with Mario 1 and Duck Hunt. And I even got the light laser gun to shoot the ducks with. However, my much older stepbrother, who was a angsty teenager at the time, he received a Sony Walkman along with 2 cassette tapes. Now, my parents knew nothing about 90s rock music. They went and purchased these cassette tapes randomly. One was a Grateful Dead tape, which my brother threw away as soon as my parents had forgotten about it as to not hurt their feelings. The other tape...
Mermaid,
Yep.
are you bored?
I'm like kind of at this point, like I don't know where they're going.
Yeah, I know it. I feel bored.
Like I don't know where they're gonna tie this all together. And I thought they were kind of over, but it's like they got, I don't know, quite a bit more, like 10 more minutes.
Yeah. All about one song. I kind of like, I feel like I've heard it before, I guess. Like maybe he
They're
said it.
acting
He's
like
like maybe
it's
combining it.
Yeah, they're acting like it's a hidden song. I've never heard of it. Is it
Yeah,
good?
probably gonna play a little bit. I don't know.
You don't remember?
I guess it was kind of like an original song that kind of got bounced and bounced and bounced, so it never got like on the album, but it was kind of like that thing that was kind of sitting there, you know. I don't know, something like that.
Well, I'll definitely have to check it out because now I want to know what's so controversial about it. Because I don't really get it yet. I don't get what they're doing, you know?
Yeah, I think what he's doing is using the idea of what was happening around that maybe one drummer was a part of the song and another drummer came in. He's using that as kind of like I don't know, something to make it like bigger and stronger and better, you know?
Yeah.
But not really as cool as there could be something to it, you know?
Yeah, they're saying that they feel like that dude should have gotten a, mention or something on the Walk of Fame, and Dave Grohl kind of robbed him of that.
Right. He should have gotten the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because he was just like, that guy.
Another weird connection, not a connection, just coincidence, is Dave Grohl and Rick Springfield actually have some businesses together. Him and Sammy Hagar too. But he is a really smart guy, Dave Grohl. Very just, I don't know, like they said, he didn't really have any doubts. He knew he was going to get it. Like he knew, I'm better than him. Like the confidence, and he really is good. I mean, Rick Springfield, self-taught on every single instrument.
Did you see Dave Grohl on that Jack Black movie? He played the devil.
I don't think so.
The pick one. You haven't seen the movie with Jack Black where it's him and his, they grew up here in California here, right? And they did that movie called something Pick. And it ended up being like the Devil's Tooth.
Yeah.
You haven't seen that?
I love Jack Black. I can't believe I haven't seen it.
Oh my God. Dude, there is like some epic shit with Jack Black in this movie. And Dave Grohl plays the devil.
Do you like them, Tenacious D?
Oh yeah, love them. Dude, they're awesome.
I love Jack Black, so I cannot believe that with Dave Grohl as well that I've not heard of this.
Yeah, dude, that song is sick. Dude, I love their music.
And
we should do like I wish we could play it.
What is it called again? I'm gonna check it out.
There's something, dude. It's I don't know. Look it up. So let's go real quick. Google search and go like Jack Black Pick, Pick, and you'll have like the name of it. If we had chat, they'd be like going, "Oh, here you go, dishing it up."
Yeah, I'm curious. Jack Black Pick of Destiny song?
Pick of Destiny.
Oh, listen. Pick of Destiny interview. Pick of Destiny mushrooms. They got a.
All right, so let's kill this one and start a new one, and we're gonna go Jack Black Pick of Destiny.
Listen, there's Jack Black Pick of Destiny trailer.
Oh, dude, this is if you haven't seen it, you have to see it. I mean, the songs are epic, and what's his name's on there too? Freaking like he's also part of the movie. What's his name? He was in I don't know, dude.
I gotta see if I got tech support. Hold up.
Yeah. It's like
hey, I know. Cool. Hey, I know how to pin a freaking comment or whatever now. StreamYard link. So I'm making progress. Hold up. Oh shit! What happened? She told me not to touch anything.
No, that's how my shorts work. That's the kind of thing that I would totally like go to right now and like find the perfect window, the most entertaining window, and I would like snip it and freaking just like regurgitate it. So you're watching like my favorite window, and you can like watch it in a loop. You know?
I know.
I'm all about that shit.
I watched how you did that the other day, and it's cool.
On what part?
I need to learn about how you
On
can
with
out.
Rose and Us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a unique window.
Yeah, it was perfect. Hang on one second. Mad at me. Hey,
What happened?
she's fixing to end it and start a new one. And what are we titling it? Just the Pick of Destiny?
Yeah, let's go Jack Black and the Pick of Destiny. That would be funny.
Okay.
And we'll just like kind of learn together.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Everybody, bye. Hit end stream, but I don't think it ended it yet.